Okay, I'm going to ask everyone to quiet down, and we'll get started with this meeting, call this meeting to order, and all rise for the singing of the national anthem and land acknowledgement.
We would like to acknowledge
that we are here today
on the traditional territory
of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation.
Nous tenons à reconnaître que
nous sommes sur le territoire traditionnel
des Mississaugas de la
Première Nation de Credit.
Oh, Canada.
Thank you. Before we get started, I have to say a few words. As many of you know, at the last board meeting of February 25th, we did that at the beginning. Please, let's keep order. So the police responded to a request for support. This happened because one of my trustee colleagues informed us that they had felt very unsafe after receiving a direct threat to his personal safety. Because it's not an active investigation, I can't provide any details of the threat itself and won't be able to respond to questions about the incident. Please, order. Rumors have been circulating the police were called to respond to staff and members of the community who were present in the audience, and specifically respond to a member of the community advocating on their behalf of black students. That is not the case. We have welcomed and continue to welcome members of our community, including staff, at our board meetings. When someone tells us they feel unsafe, we have a duty and legal responsibility to respond and to call the police. We attempt to contain the police response so the impact was minimal. However, police felt that it was important to enter the building to respond to the threat that was shared by my trustee colleague. I appreciate that the presence of the police can feel threatening, and I apologize for that negative impact having them attend that case. So, we're going to go to the agenda. An approval of agenda. Before I have that, I think I have Trustee Cameron.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Chair, I would like to say thank you for the call earlier today where we discussed my issue of on the agenda, which is a notice of motion 9.8 regarding the board writing a letter to the Minister of Education, and I appreciate that you have committed to thinking about that, putting that together based on the asks that I had in the motion, and on those grounds, and I respect and trust you that you will do that, I will respectfully remove my 9.8 item on the agenda.
9.8. Thank you, Trustee Cameron, and yes, I will be writing a letter to the Ministry as outlining your points in your motion. Also, I believe I have Trustee Green. He has his motion. Notice of motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Just please wait. Sorry, I got to press the button. Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a motion, and I'm going to ask for support that we deal with this tonight. The notice of motion reads, whereas pursuant to the regulation 4310 of the Education Act. The Ministry of Education is reviewing the Peel District School Board and will be shortly issuing directive to the board. And whereas the board will immediately be seized with the work of implementing the ministry directive, therefore be it resolved that the regular board meeting after the board that's scheduled for March the 24th be canceled.
Okay, thank you. So that will be put on to the approval of the agenda. It will require 2/3 vote to be then heard later on as I think 9 points. We'll put that as 9.9. And I see a Trustee McDonald. You have your mic on.
Yes, through your chair. With regards to 9.1, 9.3, and 9.6, in anticipation of the ministry review, I'd like to defer these three motions until our next board meeting if they have not been addressed by the review.
So if I understand that, it's 9.1, 9.3, 9.6.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So based on all those things, we're going to be voting. So the audience is aware. We're just today starting our first electronic voting process. And so we're going to be going through that for the first time. And I'll describe that as we go through it so you understand that process. The trustees have had training on it earlier today, and we'll be going through that. So, do I have someone putting this on the floor? Trustee Crocker? And, Trustee Martian, no, okay. And seconded by Trustee Davies. We're going to now approve the amended agenda, which includes removal of the motion by Trustee Cameron, 9.8, and the deferral of the three motions by Trustee McDonald, 9.1, 9.3, and 9.6, and the addition of the motion of 9.9 by Trustee Green. So, we will start the voting process up there. You'll start it. Have we started yet? So it would. Can we minutes board meeting the minutes approval line? The agenda. Okay, we're now ready to vote. Press your buttons. And, okay, have everyone voted? Okay, we'll stop the vote and see the results.
Chair McDonald?
Yes,
I vote in favor.
You're in favor? Okay, thank you. Just to let everyone know in the audience, we have Trustee Lawton remotely dialing in. So we have 10 voted here and 1 remote, so that's 11 votes for. So the motion passes. Of approval of the agenda, and we'll move on. Okay. Does anyone have a declaration of conflict of interest? Seeing none, I'll move on to the board minutes for approval. I would like to put that on the floor. Trustee McDonald, would you like to put that on the floor? The minutes, okay. Trustee Benjamin, would you like to second that? So, we're going to go through a voting process again. So, can we start for approval of the minutes? Okay, voting begins. Press your button.
I vote in favor.
Okay, Trustee Lawton is a favor. Okay, close the vote. And we have 11, therefore 10 here, and 1 remote in favor. So the minutes are approved. So the next item, item 4, Chair's request for written questions from trustees. Do I have any written questions? Okay. Okay. I have to change my screen. Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh, man. Okay. Oh boy. I'm lost in my world of microphones. There we go. Sorry about that. So I have a written question. So what I will ask on all written questions, if they're going to be responded to, they have to be handed into our board reporter, please. Okay? So, Trustee McDonald.
Yeah, this is about regarding COVID-19. What measures are being invoked by the Peel District School Board to keep students safe when they return from March break? For example, are there any plans to purchase hand sanitizing stations or bottles for classrooms?
Thank you. So as I said, if you want the question to be answered, please hand that over to our Donna Baptiste, and she'll put it in the process. I have Trustee Aurora. You have a question?
Thank you, and through your chair, during the month of June, how does the Peel District School Board celebrate queer identities and recognize Pride Month? Furthermore, what measures has the Peel District School Board taken to ensure inclusivity of the LGBTQ+ identifying students throughout the school year? And what training is currently available to staff for creating safe spaces in the classrooms?
Okay, is this a question that can be easily answered? Yes? Yes, okay, perfect. Okay, so again, they're written. Please hand them over to Donna Baptiste, and we'll work on that for a response.
Thank you.
Okay, I have Trustee Sohi, you're next with the written questions.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. My question is, how do we engage in restorative practices from an anti-bias and anti-oppression lens, taking into consideration our community and students' demographics? I'll submit my question.
Thank you. Okay, and Trustee Benjamin.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, Chair, my question is also regarding COVID-19. We have had a lot of information since morning about this on the news, and my questions are, in fact, will staff and students who travel outside Canada need to self-identify on their return after the March break? If a staff member is diagnosed with COVID-19 and needs to self-isolate for 14 days, how can the PDSP help these staff, especially contract staff? Is it advisable to have meetings, conferences, and other gatherings in closed spaces during this period? Thank you.
Thank you. So as I said at the start of the question period, please hand your questions into Donna Baptiste to allow us to respond to them. Any other questions? Oh, good. Thank you. So now we'll go on to item 5, notices of motion. Do I have any notices of motion? Okay. Trustee McDonald.
Thank you. Be it resolved that the Peel District School Board formally recognize the UN declaration that 2015 to 2024 be declared the International Decade of Peoples of African Descent in Resolution 68/237, adopted on December 3rd, 2013, beginning September 2020 until the end of the decade in 2024. Thank you.
Thank you. So again, you have that written. Please hand that over to Donna Baptiste so we can get that included into our next meeting. Mm-hmm. Do I have any other notices of motion? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 6, special recognition, which we have none. So we're going to now move on to delegations. So let me catch up. So I do this at before every delegation meeting. That question. Sorry, where is it? Delegations. Oh, I lost it. Oh boy. There, switched up. Here we go. The Peel District School Board creates a connection to the community through our delegation process to bring the issues from the community to the attention of trustees. This is one way information can be shared with us, among the many others. As chair of a regular meeting of the board, I would like to begin each delegation portion of the meeting by reminding everyone of Bylaw G3 I will be sharing this at each meeting when delegations are on the agenda. And this is part of when anyone submits the form. The back of the form provides all the delegation bylaws. Per bylaw G3, delegations may express opinions with regards to board decision or make submissions with respect to recommendations. Delegations are expected to be issue-based and respectful. Delegations must refrain from making statements concerning the character or performance of identified individuals, including students, staff, citizens, or trustees of the Peel District School Board. Any delegate who violates this requirement during their presentation shall be ruled out of order by the chair and may be asked to discontinue their presentation and or leave the board room meeting. Delegates who do not comply with the Safe Schools policy of 48 when they are on board property or disobey the decision of the chair of the board may be ordered by the chair to discontinue the presentation or leave the boardroom or meeting. Per bylaw G6, when several delegates wish to delegate the board on the same topic on the same evening, the chair may reduce the time for presentation down to 5 minutes. This will be communicated to the delegates beforehand. Finally, G4, after a decision has been made to receive the delegations, the secretary of the board or designate shall confirm the date and time with the delegate, shall advise the delegates of the bylaws of the board relating to delegations, and will request the delegates present any material in writing at least 5 business days prior to the meeting. We are happy to listen to your delegations, and when finished, please wait for questions of clarifications from our trustees. So, we have our first delegation by Graham Melvin. And Graham, as you're aware, we have a 10-minute time for which you to delegate and present your topic.
Thank you. Thank you, Board, for the opportunity to be able to speak to you tonight. It is a privilege to be able to speak. My name is Graham Melvin. I am the pastor of the Meadows Church. Our organization has been renting Applewood School and Stephen Lewis Secondary School in the neighborhood Church of Meadows for the last 9 years. My family and I moved here when my daughter was 3 months old to start our church in Stephen Lewis. This was 5.5 years ago, and we named it the Meadows Church after the neighborhood of Churchill Meadows. That is our ambition. That's our heart. We felt God just calling us to love and care for the residents there in the neighborhood. And so over the last 5 years, we just had our annual general meeting on Sunday. Over the last 5 years, we've given over $500,000 of our own donated money into the neighborhood. Again, majority, almost all of it goes towards reaching out and loving and caring for people in that neighborhood. And so tonight, my ambition is to talk about rental rates. I appreciate the changes that have been made, to the drastic changes that were first made in September, and I appreciate that. But at the same point in time, as an organization, as many organizations, we are asking for a long-term commitment. We have an ambition to partner with you. We have already been doing so, maybe even behind the scenes. And so this is our ambition. My main point is just simply for the Peel District School Board to grow their vision for what it means to partner with community groups. This is something I do feel, and I think many other community groups that I have talked to feel undervalued and not appreciated, and something that we would love to see. And I think the single most important way to show that would be committing to a reasonable long-term commitment when it comes to rental rates. As you know, living in Mississauga is expensive. It's challenging for families, for organizations, and whether we realize it or not, because of the increase the amount of real estate, the cost, the lack of rental facilities in our area, in our cities, the Peel District School Board does have a monopoly when it comes to rental spaces. We have looked. You have seen organizations try to leave because of the rental rates and have not been able to find a place. We have looked long and hard for a place for our church to meet on a Sunday, and there is just nothing in existence that would be within our neighborhood, and we don't want to leave the neighborhood we love. And so with this comes a great opportunity for the board, but also a lot of responsibility for you to handle as well. Our denomination, just over the last year, did an in-depth survey, in-depth research, and they asked this question. They said, what would it cost Canadian society to replace the programs and services our local churches provide to the wider community? So if we were just to not exist anymore, and that's a very real reality when you can't find a place to meet, then how much would it cost the government at all levels to be able to provide financially for those exact same services? And so the average church in our denomination provides $785,000 a year in services. And so over $750,000 is what we will do. And we did this through caring for various families, not just the ones that come on Sunday, but families in the neighborhood, in the community. And if we were to evaporate, or any community group would to evaporate because of the costs, then that burden ultimately then falls back on the government or on you to care for that as well. And so we support single-parent families. We provide financial and material aid for struggling families. We provide counseling for youth, for children, extracurricular activities. And most importantly, we're caring about the character change in people's lives. And this is something we love to see and what God is using us to do. And so in the near future, the board will see the effects and the suffering effects if there isn't a vision, it isn't an appreciation of valuing for partnering with community groups. On top of this, I know from the teachers that are part of our church, or even people we talk to or seeing on the news, that one of the biggest kind of current challenges in the debate going on with the unions and the government is class size. And the reason being is because the number of children with challenges, whether it's anger or mental or social or learning or any kind of disability, is on the rise. It's increasing. And that is exactly where we come in, or other organizations come in, and it costs you nothing to do. It's our money, it's our actually joy to do these things. And yet this is the one thing that we are asking for, specifically that's so unique to, again, the Greater Toronto area. And on top of this, you or no, I've been to a few of the board meetings of late. It has been chaos. You have a lot on your hands. There is a lot of struggling going on, not just this year, but over the years. And at that point in time, I just ask, why would you want to push community groups who are actively fighting and actively helping families? Why would you want to push them away? Again, we are here tonight. I know probably nobody in the room is here to listen to me. But as a key example, our church is only about 60 people. It's small, but we make a big impact. And we are an extremely diverse group of people. God says that we are one religion. We are his people. We are all equal. And we have a diversity within our midst. It's proven. You can come on a Sunday morning. You would be welcome to come on a Sunday morning. We have about a third of our church is from South Asia, a fourth are from Africa or the Caribbean. The rest are from East Asia, South America, Europe, Middle East, and some are multi-generational Canadians. And so we love this diversity, and this is just a key example. I keep looking to say, where else is this found except for in our church? I love what God is doing. And lastly, I was just made aware about this last week. It was an announcement that the provincial government made. Again, over and over again, when we asked why are we having our rents doubled or tripled or quadrupled for some organizations, the answer was the provincial government has reduced their support. They've reduced their grant. I'd question that on two ways. One is to know the actual cost for how much it costs for us to rent. I can't see any other costs than the custodial costs. Those rooms sit empty and are not being used. And so that would be the main thing. But just last week, the provincial government did make a commitment, make an announcement that they would fully restore this grant. And so with their commitment, I would ask also for your commitment. Your commitment to make a commitment, a long-term commitment, whether it's 3 or 4 years. It doesn't have to be 10 or 15 or 20, but at least something that we can plan. Again, I went to our church on Sunday with our annual general meeting, and I said, this is what we want to put in our budget for rent, but I have no idea what's going to happen. We can't fundraise, we can't support, we can't even look about should we spend extra money on reaching out and caring for our neighbors if we're focused on what is the rent going to do. And so this is what we ask. I have 3 requests for us, for the board. The first is to take an in-depth look at the real cost of what it actually costs per room, per class, per each time, and actually make that public. I know we already get a breakdown, and that's where I come up with a lot of questions. Second, is to make that long-term commitment. I know your agenda is busy today, but at least at the next board meeting, to make a long-term commitment, 3-4 years. I have not heard of any other rental situation, whether it's homes or facilities, that do not guarantee what is going to happen next year. At least to say it will not increase over 10%. Even if you said 100%, that would have been a lot better than what you did last year as well. And then lastly, is asking you yourselves to be a champion for this vision, to value community partners. I constantly are hearing from other organizations that just don't feel welcomed in the schools, whether it's changing spaces or asking for accommodations or various things like that. And so we would just ask you to champion this, that there is value in not-for-profit, charitable organizations coming in and supporting it, and again, doing the work that you want to do, but doing it alongside and doing it for free. And so those are my asks for the board.
Thank you. So, I see we have some questions, so we'll be asking questions of a clarification. Trustee DeCroo. There you go.
Thank you. I do have a couple of questions of clarification, but first of all, I want to thank you, Graham, for coming forward. And we've known each other for many, many years. Your church is in my community and that I proudly represent. And you know where I stand on the issue of the community permits. So we've heard from previous organizations that have delegated. We've had a number of delegations come forward about the community permits issue and the community permit rental hike that that was experienced by our community groups last year, which was reversed recently. And some of and they've also asked for similar things. They've asked for a commitment from the board just so that they are able to plan better for the future, at least for a few years ahead. So my question to you is, we've heard from them that the increase that some of these groups had experienced was about in the range of 425%. Would you say that your increase was similar?
Our increase, since we only rent a large room and then a small classroom, was just over double. We were able to negotiate some things. One of the things that I found very ridiculous. Now I'm grateful, like the people in the rental office, the permit office, they're great to work with. We love them. I'm grateful for their relationship. We were put on this year it was over $3,000 for the use of chairs. Now, we have people volunteer to come in and set up those chairs every single week and take them down, and they're the exact same chairs that have been there for 8 years. I just looked simply how much would it cost to buy a chair. It would have been cheaper to buy new chairs for the board, for the school, than to pay 1 year's of rent for that. And so that is where, again, I asked the question of, you say that it is just for breaking even, but it does not seem to be so. Again, on top of this, I do not think from the board's perspective, again, it is a lack of money that's the issue. It's a lack of vision. Do you really want to partner with community groups, or do you think you can handle it on your own?
Mm-hmm. And I have
another question? Okay.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that example, because I've also been made aware of, and we trustees don't actually issue permits, so we don't see them, but we were I was made aware of a few examples of things that you would normally see. But yes, you're absolutely right. I'm very thankful for the permit department for their assistance and their response to some of those questions and concerns, which was immediate. Yes, I do have a question.
Okay.
My question is, in terms of the actual use of the space, have you had challenges, and also how did you deal with the increase this past year? How did your organization manage this year?
Yeah, I think part of the challenges the permit board or the permit office has to deal with is they have to listen to the principals, they have to listen to the teachers, they have to listen to the board, they have to listen to so many different people, and we're typically the last ones to find out. I know other organizations we partner with, and there's an Islamic school that meets in Stephen Lewis that we love, and you've seen Maggie come here and speak as well, and we've seen times where they have had to adjust like a few days before or we've had to adjust just a few days before. And that is chaotic, and that is so much stress that is adding into our lives and our organizations that, again, takes away from what we're there to do, to care for those families that are in the neighborhood. Again, the majority of them going to public schools. And so, again, that's our heart, that's our ambition, and we just want to partner together in more and more ways of whatever way we can help. We would love to do so.
And how are you managing now? How will, if we're not able to attain a commitment from the board, what will you do? Yeah, so we're a small-sized church, and so what I had to do was to go outside of the church and do fundraising in order to provide for the extra money that we were spending. Again, our rent doubled, and we were able to negotiate down to just doubling it, and again, take things off and adjust on our own side of things. But that is exactly what we had to do. We had to go outside of our church, ask for funds from other churches, and see if we can kind of support in that way. And so, again, it's just a deep, difficult challenge. It takes away our time, takes away our energy, takes away our resources that we can be investing back into the neighborhood. Thank you so much.
Is that all the questions? Okay. Thank you. I have Trustee Marchand.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Chair. Thank you for your public service and the great work you do in the community. You mentioned looking at alternatives and that they weren't available. Yep. Was it the fact that there was no physical space available, or was the cost the cost of what you did find out there as alternatives even greater than what we were asking? Yeah, it's not about the cost, it's about the actual location. So in Churchill Meadows, if you know the area, it's basically homes and schools. There's a few storefronts. There's a library that has a small room that couldn't accommodate our size. There's a new community center that's going in, and we've been talking with our city councilor about that, and still already there's a lineup for people to sign in for the rental space. And so even for that, we're not sure if we're going to be able to get it, if it's going to fit us, if it's going to accommodate us. Again, you guys have buildings that are just sitting empty on the weekends and that have been paid by taxpayer money that we would love to just see to go back to use and help out those families even more. Thank you. And Did your church reach out to the municipality and the provincial government as well? And did you get any responses from them in your?
Yeah, we were part of a joint group that put together a petition that was sent forward. Again, Maggie, who was here speaking as well, she was part of that too, and various other organizations as well were a part of that petition. I'm not the closest one on the response team to hear exactly what they heard back, but it seems to be from their response that they want to be a part of this too. But again, I still come back to say, even if the province wasn't involved, it's about a lack of vision. It's about a valuing of partnership, of saying, hey, we want to make sure we're doing this together as well.
Thank you. And you are, I understand that the province did make that announcement, but haven't actually released this year's budget. I know you have a lot of champions on this board in terms of supporting our community agencies, so that's not what I'm saying. Yep. But you are aware that our budget is year to year, and we don't know what those funds are, again, which is, I think, like one of our.
But at the same point in time, our budget's year to year too, and we say to our community, we're going to make it happen. We're going to make sure that we are here, that we continue to love on them and serve them, and it's never 100% guarantee. But it still is a commitment as much as we possibly can. Again, I would also ask to look back into the numbers to see exactly how much it costs, because that's really, at the end of the day, all I could ask for is just to pay at cost. And again, numbers can be moved, things can be adjusted to make it seem in various ways, but that's another option too.
If I may correct you, you can ask for us to subsidize you too. That's okay.
Okay. Yeah. So, I appreciate that. If you would, I'm kind of saying the minimum, but yeah, you're right. I would appreciate both.
Thank you.
Okay. Seeing no more questions, well, I thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you, guys.
So hand your notes. You obviously were reading from something, so please hand that over down at Baptiste. Yep. We'll include that, and hopefully we'll have a response at the next board meeting, which we get to vote on if it's going to be the 24th or April.
Yeah, okay? Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, our next one is Dr. Tope, and your last name I may pronounce incorrectly, Adafarakan? Okay, so you have 10 minutes for your delegation. And then after that, please remember to stay with the group here, and we will then ask if there are any questions of clarification.
Okay, thank you. And it's Dr. Tokwe Adefarakan.
Okay.
Okay, so we stand before you here today, this evening, deeply, deeply concerned in terms of the happenings that have been accruing over the past few months, especially at the last board meeting. And we are here to say a number of things with also a number of demands. The trust is quite broken between the board and the Black community. Given that the community, the board has been handing over our children to the police and has been criminalizing our children by calling the police. And now you are criminalizing parents who are concerned about how their children are being treated while they're in schools, while they're in an environment that is supposed to be safe, a learning environment. And so the police being called at the last meeting is deeply, deeply concerning. And now you are individualizing the parents who are concerned and trying to address the criminalizing of our children. And you are accusing parents of trespassing on public spaces. Individual parents, for example, Idris Orogu and Kolailu Yomade. This, however, will not keep us as a community silent. We will continue to speak, and we will not be silenced. We will continue to advocate for our children. They are our future, and we will not be stopped. We have a number of demands, the first being that a third party needs to be chosen to facilitate a discussion between our community, the Black community, and the board. The second is that once the ministry has released the report, our question is, we would like to know who is going to be held accountable for the egregious harms and the wrongs that have been detailed in the report. Demand number 3, in regards to the excessive punishment and discipline of Black children in schools, we are demanding for the removal of school resource officers. We would also like the trustee who attempted to bring this motion forward at the last meeting to reintroduce it. Yes. We are deeply concerned about how our children are being excessively punished through detentions, through expulsions, through suspensions. So I ask you, we all ask you, when a 6-year-old child is shackled by her wrists and by her ankles on her stomach for 28 minutes and just watched, we are asking, how is that in any way, shape, or form providing a safe learning space for our children? She is not the first, she is not the second, she is not the third, she is not the fourth, and I can go on and on and on. It is dehumanizing, it is flagrantly egregious, and it is anti-Black racism. It is the school to prison pipeline. It is the school to child welfare pipeline. And when a Black mother and the larger community seeks to address it and hold the board accountable, ironically, the police are called. Right? So here you are dehumanizing the very people that are trying to hold you accountable for the criminalization of our children. And it's irrational. This is a form of irrational panic and fear, and it needs to be addressed. Essentially, it's white hysteria, is what it is. This is a colonial structure Some of you have admitted to this. It's a colonial process. It's a colonial system, which is embedded in and relies on the white gaze. And that white gaze is relentless with respect to punishing and criminalizing our children. Demand number 4. Wait, let me backtrack a little bit. So when you have this situation where what we have to deal with in terms of our children, right? Always giving up our children up to a system and not knowing how they're going to be treated, not knowing if we'll be getting a phone call saying that our child, we have to be coming to the school, that the police have been called. Is this the Peel District School Board, or is it the Police District School Board? I'm going to say it again. When our children are going into their schools and expecting to learn, and we're handing them over, and we have them learn, we want them to learn, and they're being handcuffed, and they're being suspended, and they're being expelled, and they're being punished, and we're getting call after call after call. Is this a safe learning environment? Is it the Peel District School Board, or is it the Police District School Board? Who are you working on behalf of? Is it our children, or is it the police? Demand number 4, the collection of race-based data. Now, I know this might be happening now, but we need to be able to have access to this. We need to be able to use this data so that we can actually know where the places are that we need to be able to put in preventions and interventions. Because when we come here despite knowing that there's a possibility that there will be police called for us. We come here knowing that we are here to fight for our children, and we will not be silenced. We will not be stopped. So we need to have a better understanding of what's going to be happening with the data, because data is power. And knowledge is power, and we want to be able to hold you accountable on behalf of our children. And then demand number 5, we would like to have and we would like to see a dedicated school for Black students, an Afrocentric school in the Peel Board, where there are Black teachers, where there are Black staff, where there are Black admin, and where there is, most importantly, a decolonized curriculum, where Black children can see themselves in a positive light, where their identities are affirmed, and where their self-esteem is protected and it's nourished, as opposed to being torn apart by what's happening right now in the system, especially with respect to one example that I was given by a parent during Black History Month, when an assignment is given to a class by a white teacher, and the song that the assignment is based on is "Where Is Your Father?" Now, what does that say? What kind of stereotype or trope does that feed into in terms of the whole notion of absent Black fathers during Black History Month? And this is the kind of education that you're imparting on our children? This is the kind of education that you are requiring them to know and understand. How does that reproduce a sense of internalized oppression for them? In terms of how they understand their families, in terms of how they understand themselves.
Are you guys listening? You're talking. We're claiming our time. We'll get another minute.
Keep going.
This is really important, and you need to be listening. We are the taxpayers here, right? We voted you in. So you need to be listening to what it is that we're saying. We are citizens, and we are part of this community. And our children are a part of this community, and they're our future. So we need to be able to have a curriculum that extends beyond assignments asking children where their father is. And it can't be reduced to what happens or sometimes happens during Black History Month, which is assemblies, right? Where people are allowed to dance and allowed to sing, We need to have a curriculum where Black children understand the kinds of contributions that Black people, African people have made to this country. And continue to make to this country. So just to let you know, I know we have 3 more minutes. We will be using them.
It's only 14 seconds, so.
14 seconds? No. Media in the building, make sure you get this photo. Black people, people in this gallery, post this on social media. We will not be silent. We will not be stopped. Black students matter. Black students matter.
Okay.
Black students matter. 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 Black students matter.
Okay, I'm calling you to order now, please.
Black students matter. Black students
Please,
matter.
I'm asking you.
Black students matter. Black students matter. Black students matter.
Excuse me, Dr. Tope? I think we have some questions of clarification, so I'll remind trustees this is questions of clarification, not for comment. Okay, please? Okay, Trustee DeCroo.
That was incredible. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
I was the trustee that brought the motion forward at the last board meeting, which was unfortunately not debated, not voted on, not discussed. I would be happy to bring that forward if the review does not address some of the contents that were in it. My understanding is that the information will be coming out shortly. It will be made public. So if it does not address that, and if the board would allow, I am happy. I'm committed to bringing it forward to have that conversation again. I do have a question. I do have a question. You mentioned a trespass letter that just really just an hour ago or so, someone tagged me in it on Twitter. And
I'm sorry, we can't talk about that. I'm sorry.
It's in the Toronto Star.
I know, we can't talk about it. I'm sorry.
I have a question for the director. It's a very operational question.
You can ask that at question period time, but not to...
This is question period time, isn't it?
No, it's not.
I can ask a clarification question to the director.
You can ask clarification questions of the delegate. You have question period time at the end of the meeting, but we can't be talking about the trespass letter.
No, I have to ask a question of clarification to the director.
Absolutely. At question period time.
Sending of letters in general.
Absolutely.
Sure. Question period.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do you have any other questions you want to ask the delegation? Okay, thank you. Trustee Marchand?
Yes, thank you, through you, Chair. And thank you, Doctor, for your impassioned presentation. You mentioned you would like to see us develop a specific African Canadian-centric school and curriculum. I know there's several examples out there in other parts, both in the U.S. and Canada. Do you have any specific examples, do you know, that have shown some really positive effects and some really positive stuff? And if you do that, could you share that in your notes with the board as well so that we can take that with us as well?
Sure, but I think one of the most popular examples, there was quite a bit of furor around the Afrocentric Alternative School with the Toronto District School Board. And after, a prolonged debate over having this school, it was finally passed. And the school has been running since 2009, and it's very, very successful. In fact, in the first 1 or 2 years, the grade 3 and 4 cohort surpassed their coordinate,
EQAO?
Yes, their counterparts. That's the word I was looking for. Their counterparts in terms of the EQAO. So there is much, much research and proof here in Canada in terms of the TDSB, both at the elementary level as well as the secondary level, as well as in the United States, as well as in the UK, that these schools where children can literally, instead of surviving, they can thrive because their identities are being affirmed. Let me just say also that anti-Black racism is pervasive. So you get it everywhere. It's in the media. It's in child welfare. It's in healthcare. It's in schools. It's everywhere. So when you are in schools 8 hours a day, to be affirmed and to know that the people you come from have literally built this country, right, and contributed to this country in deeply meaningful ways, that does unleapable bounds for children in terms of knowing that they too can do that and then some. But we don't get those experiences. I grew up here in this system. I didn't get that experience, and I'm fighting for my child to have that experience. So an Afrocentric alternative school needs to be put in place in the Peel region so that parents who wish to have their children enrolled and have their identities affirmed and see themselves reflected can do so.
Okay, is that all the questions? You have more? Sorry.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. The other one, and I know from the support here that there's probably sufficient numbers to generate at least a couple of classes for that. So, but if you do have, absolutely. So if I can ask another leading question, I know that you represent some voices here, but if we could get some idea of numbers and the magnitude of the demand, the pent-up demand out there for this. So if you have that information, if you don't have it handy tonight, if you could forward that with your notes.
It's not some, with all due respect, it's all the voices here. We are here because we are...
Yes. All of us.
Order, please, order. Order.
And this is not new. We as a community have been fighting and speaking and shouting and praying for decades for our children. This is not new. Yeah.
Thank you.
And thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I have Trustee Green.
Thank you, Doctor, for your presentation. Everything that you said this afternoon is very relevant. But there's something that you said that deeply troubling to me. And if you have that information, or if you can have a discussion with me around that, is where you say in your presentation that there was, I don't know if it's school or teachers are asking Black kids where your father is. If you have that information, I would love that information. I'm willing to have a conversation with you around that because I would like to address that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
I don't have a problem speaking to you with concerning that, but I think one of the things that we have to be mindful of, there is research upon research upon research. Parents have come and talked about their experiences and their children's experiences over and over and over again. The one example that I gave, or the one of 2 or 3 examples that I gave, is nothing new.
We know that.
Anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
What we need now is action.
Okay. I'm going to now have Trustee McDonald. Questions of clarification, please, for the delegation.
Thank you. I would just like to tell you thank you for coming forward.
Thank you for listening.
Is there a question? No, it's just a thank you? Okay, sorry. I was waiting. So, seeing no more questions, I want to thank you for the delegation. I believe you read some great notes there. Please hand that over to Donna Baptiste, and we're hoping at the next board meeting, not sure when that will be, pending motion later today, we'll be responding to you. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. Order, please. Thank you. Order. Thank you. So we have no old business, so we're going on to item 9 in the agenda, all new business. So 9.1 has been deferred to the next board meeting, so we're going to be going to 9.2. So that is Trustee Crocker's motion. and on requesting retaining funding levels for assessment of mental health. So, Trustee Crocker, do you have a seconder? Sorry.
Yes, Chair, I do.
Who's the seconder?
Trustee Lawton.
Trustee Lawton, you're on the phone. You're the seconding this motion?
I am.
Perfect. Okay, so
Thank you.
you get 5 minutes to introduce your motion to the floor, Trustee Crocker.
May I read the motion, Chair?
If you wish, but that takes your 5 minutes, remember.
Whereas the current cuts to public education will disenfranchise and hurt our most vulnerable students, the ones who live in poverty, and those who require special education supports to be successful. And whereas there are too few psychoeducational consultants, speech-language pathologists, social workers, and educational assistants to meet the current demands for assessment and mental health services. And whereas the needs of our students are becoming increasingly more complex and pervasive, and require professional student services personnel to evaluate students' needs, provide support and in-school strategies to assist them, and navigate the myriad community supports available with their families. And whereas access to educational program that addresses the individualized needs of every student is a human right and requires PSSP and educational assistance to help identify the necessary supports. And whereas it is our moral and ethical obligation to do all we can to provide students with the education and assistance they need to be independent, contributing citizens, be it resolved that the PDSB urge the Minister of Education to continue to fund to at least the 2018-19 levels the vital services provided by our PSSPs, along with educational resource facilitators, early childhood educators, and others to ensure the success of all students. Be it further resolved that this notification be shared widely with our partners in education. So, Chair, this is all about the needs of the children of Peel. It's not about our employees' contractual working conditions. Otherwise, Chair, the argument's all in the whereases. I ask my trustee colleagues for their support.
Okay, thank you. I see Trustee DeCroop.
Thank you, Chair. And I want to actually thank Trustee Crocker for bringing this motion forward. And I want to thank you, Chair, for allowing this and not ruling it out of order.
Order, please.
My apologies. But anyway, I want to express my strong support for this. Not only am I someone who strongly believes in the need in supporting the needs of our students and the growing needs for students with special education, but I'm also a mother of a 3-year-old with a speech delay as well. So I, from a personal standpoint, and I completely, wholeheartedly believe that we need not only to request retaining the funding levels for assessment and mental health services, we in fact need to increase the funding levels for mental health services.
Please.
So I'm a little bit confused about this, but I know that OPSPA does the bargaining stuff, but I guess this is not a part of that, and this is similar to us sending a letter, which we normally would do outside of a bargaining process when we say give us more money for special education, which we do all the time.
So this is a question to me?
Yeah.
Okay, so I did look into that this letter is more about spec ed funding and not part of the negotiation process.
Fantastic. Okay, thank you.
And that's why I didn't rule it out of order.
Okay. So yeah, I'll be supporting it. I hope that my colleagues support it as well. It's a very important. These are very important services. These are very important staff for our students, and we need to ensure that we're able to support them as best as we can. And the only way to do that is really by constantly asking for more funding. So thank you very much, Trustee Crocker, for bringing this forward.
Thank you. Next up, Trustee Green.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Trustee Crocker, I want to thank you for bringing this forward, because myself, who represent the board at the executive level and at the entire school board level, and working diligently and advocating for these funding, special expected funding, because we know that this is one of the area in which we are always a shortfall, that we always have to take money from to support. And I believe that the work that our staff do around these are all vulnerable kids and so forth. And that's the reason why I make sure that I looked into that this was not going to interfere with that something at the bargaining table. And I've got the green light, so because of that, I will be supporting this motion. So, and I thank you for bringing it forward.
Thank you, Trustee Green. Trustee Marchand.
Yes, thank you, and through you, Chair. Again, Mr. Crocker, thank you for bringing this back in a form that we can fully support, and that stresses the importance of looking after these, the most vulnerable students. I happened to have a discussion on the weekend with some members of representing some of our teachers, and was quite impressed by their impassioned plea to reach out to make sure that we've got the special ed supports, and the supports not for the teachers, but for those workers who are perhaps the unsung heroes of our schools as well, and that they need to be not forgotten and lost in this process. I was quite impressed with the presentation brought to me on the weekend, and I think this helps support that. The window for the budget is closing soon. As we know, it's coming out to be announced on the 25th at this point. So I do fully support this, and thank you for bringing it forward.
Okay, thank you so much. And Trustee Sohi, you're next.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Thank you, Trustee Crocker, for bringing this forward. I wholeheartedly support this motion, and I recall when we both went to the HB school, and that school has a school in it which actually addresses most of this, this is the most vulnerable students that we must take care, and our staff that is a lot of times are not allocated in a way that they are taking care of one-on-one, and we are really stretching our staff, and I wholeheartedly support this motion. Thank you for bringing this forward.
Trustee Aurora.
Thank you. And through your chair, once again, Trustee Crocker, thank you very much for bringing this forward. As a board, I know that we pride student achievement and student success, but I think that even more than that, we pride our staff for all the dedication and commitment they have towards fostering their student success. Just to share another personal anecdote, after visiting Applewood Schools, a school that is specifically for students in the design disability programs, I got to witness the importance of not only individualized learning, but also the role that our staff play in student achievement. It was also brought to my attention that students have to wait up to 2 years to receive psychoeducational support, which is absolutely not okay. And so, as Trustee DeCrube mentioned, it's important that not only do we retain the funding that we have and the support that we have for students, but we also increase it. And especially because psychoeducational support considers all the strengths and the needs of the students, which is very beneficial in helping them not only unlock their true potential, but it also has the potential to save a life, which is why I'm very pleased to say that I will be wholeheartedly supporting this motion, and I'm very thankful for Trustee Crocker once again for bringing it forward.
Thank you. Trustee McDonald.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, I too will be supporting this motion, and it is my hope that the board will ensure that when we refer to ensuring the success of all students, we include Black and Indigenous students. It is also my hope that we look at anti-Black racism and the great toll it has on the mental health of our Black students.
Order, please.
So while I wholeheartedly support this letter, I'd also like to ensure that our most vulnerable students, including Black and Indigenous students, are not forgotten in this letter. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Benjamin.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, I'd just like to say that I wholeheartedly support this motion. And while we talk about our students, there are also parents who need a lot of support. And I know that many of our staff provide that support. And I happened to meet a parent last week who was very appreciative of all the support that is given by the special education resources, staff, as well as the superintendents, etc. So for all the reasons mentioned by the trustees before me, I wholeheartedly support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. So anyone else would like to make any comments? So seeing that, then I'll let Trustee Crocker close debate on this motion. You're going to pass? Yeah, before you do, I was going to say something before you close, so if you don't mind. I think our staff in our schools, all staff, are exceptional and they do great jobs for our students and children. But I think this group that this motion identifies staff, firsthand, I've seen how it can change the outcome of so vulnerable kids. That can really change the outcome of vulnerable kids. And this motion is important to talk to the government that our funding for this sector needs to be continued and if not increased, because the need and demand for these students is so high and great. So we're going to go to a vote. Again, we're going to our electronic voting process, and we have our Trustee Lawton on the phone. So I'll hand it over to start the voting. Okay. Everyone's pressed. Okay. Okay, and you will stop the voting.
I vote in favor.
And so that makes 11 an unanimous vote in favor of this motion. Thank you very much. So that's 9.2. 9.3 has been deferred, so we're going to now go on to 9.4, Trustee McDonald's motion on video recording. And I press my mics. And Trustee McDonald, would you like to press your mic, please? So, do you have a seconder?
I do.
Trustee DeCroop. Okay, you now have 5 minutes to introduce your motion on the floor.
Can I make a friendly amendment as to include video live streaming? Because in video, I wanted to include live streaming, but I understand that they're two separate things.
So you would like to add, before we even talk about it, live streaming. Okay, so where do you want to write this in your motion before we...
So begin video and live streaming recording.
Video recording and live stream and live streaming.
Yeah, of all.
Okay, so I will accept that. We won't go through an amendment process because it's your motion. And so you have 5 minutes to introduce your motion.
Thank you. And for the record, I'd like a recorded vote, please.
Absolutely. Recorded vote.
Thank you. This motion strives to put the public back in public education. I first attempted to increase transparency at the PDSB by having meetings recorded, but it was only audio recorded. As time progressed, I came to realize how important the visual aspect of board meetings are. Did you know that the proverbial they say 80% of communication is visual? Visual communication includes, but is not limited to, signs, art, drawing, graphic designs, electronic resources, advertising, animation. It also includes drama. And very often during board meetings, there are special presentations. There are slideshows or PowerPoint presentations. The eyes are treated to a whole range of stimuli. Visual elements often help during speeches. Body language is a very important aspect of communication. It can convey respect or disrespect, aggression or dismissive or arrogant demeanor. It often says a lot. Eye rolling, shoulder shrugs, and other gestures say a lot. This motion could not have come at a better time. Presently, the community, the Black community in particular, is up in arms about the treatment of Black students. There are often passionate delegations or frustrated parents, staff, or community members that come to be heard at the board. It is important for the public to witness democracy and freedom of expression. From an audio recording or from live streaming, it would, for example, if a parent yells, it's easy to make a mistake who actually yelled. So people could be wrongfully accused of yelling and harassing behavior or being disrespectful and given trespass letters when none is not warranted. This in itself can leave the board open to lawsuits. This is 2020. The region of Peel, the city of Brampton, and many progressive cities in Ontario, progressive boards already have video recordings and live streaming. Video recording and live streaming will bring all the magic of governance in public education right to the public, right to the students, right to the parents, the staff, and the community at large. When I first brought forward the motion to record and explored the cost associated to audio record the meetings and explored the cost associated with live streaming and videoing the board meetings, it was not prohibitive. I'm asking my colleagues to bring this board to the 21st century and have our meetings video recorded and live streamed. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Trustee DeCroop, you'd like to speak to the motion?
Absolutely. I am in full support of this. My colleague would know that. And I also am urging the board to support this and bring the board meetings to the 21st century. We are clearly an interesting bunch. And there are a number of people who may have wanted to join us today, but are not joining us for various reasons. And I think this is about making our public process more accessible, more transparent, more available. I was very in support of making the meetings recorded, but the audio is not the same. It doesn't really give the same flavor. I think body language is quite important when we are communicating, and I think, you know, if live streaming was an option today, I'm sure that people may be doing that rather than following the tweets and whatnot that I get, you know, I keep watching on Twitter. But so I'm urging my colleagues to support this. I can't imagine, I'm not the expert on IT or how much this would cost, but I can't imagine that this would be much more costly than what we currently do. And I'm hoping to ensure that the public stays in public meetings, and this is a way for us to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee DeCroop. Now I have Trustee Davies.
Well, while this is a very intriguing motion, we very recently established a governance committee who was going to look at all aspects of our meetings and those sorts of things. And as many positive points as we've heard so far, I know there are negative points as well. And I'd just like the governance committee just to refer this to the governance committee to study it in full and bring back a report to the board.
Okay, so based on Trustee Davies, he's put a referral of the motion to the governance committee. So, do you have a seconder to that? Do I need a seconder to that? Do I need yes, I do need a seconder to the deferral. Referral. Do I need a seconder? I do need a seconder to. Yeah. So, is anyone going to second your motion? All right. Trustee Benjamin, are you seconding? Oh, you're seconding it? Okay. Okay. So we have the deferral of the motion on the table and seconded. So Trustee Davies, you can talk to it, or unless you've talked to it already and you want to.
Is it okay to beg someone to second?
Yep.
Really?
Order, please. Please, order. There's no questions from the public until question period at the end. So question, sorry, Trustee Davies.
Yeah, this is a very intriguing motion, but I just feel that we've just established a governance committee to look into all aspects of our meetings and how they're run, and I just think that this would be an excellent thing to be on the agenda of their first meeting.
Okay.
And then they can bring a report back to the board on this.
Okay. Thank you, Trustee Davies. So Trustee Sohi, do you have comments on the deferral? Okay. No. Trustee Benjamin, do you have comments on the referral? Sorry, I keep getting the deferral.
Yeah. Through your chair, I'm a member of the governance committee, and I think what Trustee Davis said makes sense. But I also have a couple of questions. When you mentioned, Trustee McDonald, when you mentioned live streaming throughout, does it mean, how can you explain this? Throughout the city of Brampton, Mississauga, Caledon?
We have to talk to, we can't talk to the motion.
Okay.
We have to talk to the deferral.
Okay, so
the referral, I keep calling it deferral.
Okay, so there are many questions that need to be answered, and so
please
the
order.
governance committee has to sit together, and we will take the opinions of all the trustee members and put it together and bring it forward to the committee. As part of the EML, that is Empowering Modern Learners policy, I'm quite sure the board will go ahead with this policy. So that's all I have to say.
Okay. Thank you, Trustee Benjamin. Trustee DeCroop, you have, we're speaking to the deferral.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Referral.
Referral, yes. Thank you, Chair MacDonald. I don't understand this referral. I don't think that it's a very hard decision to make whether we're going to live stream or videotape our meetings. And to be honest, it's very concerning. And I'll be honest. So I don't know if the public is aware about how this works, but our committees, we actually get paid extra to be on them. So every trustee that attends additional committees gets paid per hour per diem.
Okay, out of order. Sorry.
I'm not saying anything. I'm
sorry.
You don't have to
Trustee
spend
DeCroop, that's
more money
out of order. Stop.
on an issue
I'm
you
turning
can
your
vote
mic
on
off.
now.
That is out of order. I'm sorry. That's out of order. So, Trustee McDonald, you're up next. So you'd like to talk to the referral to the governance committee.
Yeah. I don't see any reason why we should be delaying this process. It is pretty straightforward. And I think...
Please, Trustee McDonald, please, audience, I will not be asking much more, or we'll have to... I have to call order. We have to hear the trustees speak. So please respect everyone at this table, or otherwise we'll have to have a recess. Okay, Trustee McDonald, please speak.
So when you look at the time delay, right, and the cost associated, is not necessary to go and, first of all, the committee, we don't even know when the meeting dates have been set yet, as well as the public, when the public come to a meeting, they are watching and seeing us. All that is doing is that people who can't physically be in the building are here. We're supposed to be an inclusive and progressive board. So if people are shut in, they're ill, somebody might have even COVID-19 and don't want to come into public, but would like to know what's going on at the meeting, they can, from the comfort of their home, be
Order,
watching.
please. Order.
So I see it's a no-brainer to start live streaming and videoing the
Thank you.
meetings. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Marchand.
Yes, thank you, and through you, Chair. I don't see that this is really a governance issue either. This is an accessibility issue. Please, if I may, and I'm sorry, Chair, through you, we need to keep decorum here. We'd like to get through this. I would hate to see us have to take a recess and come back. So please, for the sake of us who'd like to get through this, let us get to this while we can. So, Chair, on that point, I don't understand the need to put this to a governance. It's not something that needs a bylaw. We already have minutes. We already have recorded minutes. We already have video we already have audio of this. For it to allow live streaming for more people to have accessibility to our meetings, I think is I don't see how it becomes a governance issue. So I will be voting against the referral. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else wish to speak to the referral to the Governance Committee? No? Okay, Trustee Davies, do you want to close the debate on the referral? There you go.
Again, I'm not against the motion. There's just so many other aspects of it, and we're under a government review, and I just like more information on the cons of doing this. I don't have enough information at this moment.
Okay, please, audience, let's respect the trustees talking. Okay, so we're going to the deferral on 9.4. So that's a referral. All those people in favor of referring this motion will vote yes on our electronic system. Again, we're trying this today. I just want to explain everything there. We also have someone on the phone, so their vote will be orally heard. So we'll now start the voting process for referral deferral.
I support the deferral.
So on the motion, okay, Sue Lawton has said...
You are the only participant.
So, everyone voted, so now let's close the vote. Sorry, wait.
You are the only participant.
Okay, we're now close the vote. No, 2 yeses, 8 noes, so the referral will not go forward. So we're now back to the motion. Please, audience. This isn't a sporting event where you applaud, okay? So please respect the decorum and order of this room. So we're back to talking about the motion. We've had some people talk already. Do we have any other people want to talk to the motion? I have to turn my mic screen on here. And I see Trustee Sohi.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I think this will make the proceedings more transparent and for the benefit of one and all. So I'm strongly in the support of this motion. Thank you.
Trustee Crocker.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, I have a question for the mover, maybe two.
Okay.
So my question is, who exactly is going to be videoed here? I have no particular desire to see myself on video, and I can see my colleagues.
Audience, please, let's listen to the trustee.
You made reference to being able to identify who might have shouted something out or who might have done something. How many cameras would we have? I find that I hear somebody in the crowd. By the time my eye's drawn in that direction, I don't know who it is. I'm not sure what the purpose of that is, really, and I'm not sure that we can do it. I'm also not sure, Chair, whether we should be videotaping the entire audience. There are often children here. I don't know the legalities of that, and I would like to know before I can vote. So may I have answers to those questions,
So
please?
do you want the answer from the person, because some of them is legal, or do you want to ask someone?
I'd like to, it is a question for the mover.
Okay, the person who put it on the floor, Trustee McDonald? Okay. Trustee McDonald, can you answer those questions?
Yes, sure, I can. So when I was doing my research and I looked at other boards, the camera it's only one camera that they use. I'm not sure the location it is, but it captures the boardroom. It's usually at the back, so you don't usually see the faces of the people in the gallery. You see the Board of Trustees, and it's very tiny, so you're not going to see your pimples or anything like that, but it's further back. And it's just a matter of the public being able to actually see what's going on here in the boardroom. And in terms of capturing children, it's based on location. I've never seen them capturing like children in video, in the live streaming of it. And yeah.
So supplemental, Chair?
Sorry, I just wanted to add to that. In places that you've gone and where there's recording, they're always, when you sign in, like people have been signing in to come in, you can just sign in and they acknowledge that this proceeding is being recorded.
So, Chair, through you, so in fact, we would not be able to identify somebody in the crowd who had shouted out or...
Is that a question or something, the statement that if we do implement it, that we should not videotape such, or it shouldn't be clear enough to identify children? Is that what you're saying? Trustee Crocker? Is it a question or just a statement when we implement it?
I understood that to be a question of the mover.
Okay, Trustee McDonald, would you like to answer that?
Yes.
Sorry, yeah, just be a sec. There you go.
Yeah. So in certain cases, so for example, if everybody's sitting, right, like at our last meeting, one person is standing up, it's pretty easy to see who the person is. So that way it's harder to confuse, let's say a lady who is screaming or a man who is sitting quietly. So you'd see the figure of the person because it's almost like the back. And again, we can work with communications, and I see Director, so I'll yield to our Director of Communications.
And I see communication would like to weigh in on this conversation and just have to get their mic on. Are we able to get our communication director's mic? Okay. The expert's coming.
Sorry, through you, Chair. Sorry, the button was underneath the tape, so it's not my fault. I didn't see the button. Anyway, I just wanted to say that the field of vision for the cameras, we've already tested it out, and it's quite easy to do, and it can be narrowed down so it's just the podium and folks beyond the podium, or it can be a wider shot. If it's a wider shot, it would require a separate camera person to run that, and especially if there's a special presentation, you would need someone to pan back and forth to capture the student performance, but you wouldn't necessarily capture the folks in the audience. That being said, it is also possible now that we've got made some modifications to the electronic voting. We already require 2 people to be present to run the meeting, so it would not be an additional cost at all to do this for you.
Thank you, Director of Communications. Okay, now we'll go to Trustee Green.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think my question is answered because I am concerned about the liability part in terms of when students come. So if it can focus on trustees doing their work and so forth, I have no problem supporting it. And I think hearing from Director Pereira, that can be done. So I will support the motion. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else like to talk to the motion? So now we'll close on the motion. So Trustee McDonald, press your mic. You get to speak to the motion on closing.
Thank you. I think it was serendipitous that Dr. Ade Farrakhan's delegation regarding criminalizing black young bodies was on our agenda today. It was amazing listening to her advocate for our precious children full of potential. It would have been even more amazing if members of the public at home, especially our young black students, witnessed the overwhelming support from the community that was demonstrated today. Having this recorded would have been priceless. Thank you.
Thank you. So now we're going to go to our electronic vote. We're voting on 9.4. So let's start the voting. Okay, the voting started. Press your buttons. And this is a recorded vote. So everyone's pressed their buttons. And now we will close the vote. And we have 7-4, so the motion passes. Trustee Lawton, do you have your vote to be cast? I think we lost her. Yeah, we've lost her. Okay, so the motion passes 7-3. The recording of people who voted are there on the screen. And we'll move on to our next item in the agenda. Okay. So, and that is motion 9.5. Minutes of the regular board meeting by Trustee McDonald. So, Trustee McDonald, do you press your mic, please? Okay, do you have a seconder?
I do.
Okay, Trustee DeCroop. Mm-hmm. Okay, you have 5 minutes to introduce your motion, please.
Great, thank you. A lot of what was discussed in my first motion applies to this, but I'd just like to add that having answers to the questions printed allows other members of the public to have access to the wealth of information that can be garnered by reading or having access to answers. Oftentimes, when preparing for a meeting, it would be helpful to be able to refer to the answers that are provided or that were provided to the public when the questions was asked, as opposed to seeing the standard, the chair responded. Having printed answers to the questions, especially when the public has heightened interest in an issue, is of utmost importance. And I would like to end my opening with a poem that's actually written by a Peel District School Board teacher, Cheryl Woolnough, which is full of questions. And if this was presented in question period, you wouldn't know the answers to the questions. So the piece is originally titled, Black Bodies in White Spaces. Please stop using black folks as props for creative social media and promo photo ops, then dehumanize and destroy by calling the cops #deploy. Black kids enter education willing to learn with a smile, with zest and wanting to please. Then at 6 and 15, they are shown jail keys. School to prison pipeline is what black parents fear because so many educators simply do not care. Black bodies dehumanize not even the word sorry. You simply move on because it's a concern or worry. The abuse of power continues to grow because #equity and #inclusion is way too slow. Pretty words on paper in the big archives while the wheels of white supremacy destroy black lives. How can black students aspire to be the best they can be if criminals are all that you and many educators see? We need the support from everyone on board, even though we are going through cuts. From Doug Ford. We have to stop the ones that continually sabotage, especially leaders wearing equity camouflage. Will you help abolish the white supremacy sin? Make individual statements to destroy the enemies within. What is your plan? What will you do? Put forth positive action and follow through. Why hate black skin? What have we done to you? The hate so strong from your ancestors still flow through. What do you think the solution should be? To release the chains and set our black students free. Free to be happy, free to do well, free to live life, and free to excel. I ask for individual letters to show your devotion. Please stop sabotaging Black positive motions. Do what is right, do what is just. Supporting Black students is a definite must. Thank you.
Please order. Please order. Okay. So I have Trustee Davies now talking to the motion.
Just more of a question of clarification. Does this not involve changing our bylaws? And I'd just like an opinion from staff on that.
Yes, this requires a change in our bylaw.
Well, let's get some work for our governance committee then, because that's what they're looking into, our bylaws. And they're going to report back on these exact issues. That's why we have a governance committee to look at our bylaws. So I'd like to defer this to the governance committee if I can.
Okay. Do you have a seconder of your deferral? Yeah, Trustee Green will second that. So we'll be talking to the deferral of this motion around minute taking to a referral to the governance committee. So Trustee DeCroop, we're going to talk to the referral to the governance committee.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chair McDonald. I'm not saying that I hate committees or something. Don't get me wrong. I think committee work is important. And I think trustee involvement in committee work is important. What I am saying is there are 12 of us on this board. There are 12 of us that make these decisions. Some of these decisions are complex, so you need to refer them to committees. For example, you need staff to provide you further input. You need to do a little bit more research. You need to look into the legalities of something, and it has to be something that's really substantial, that's going to take time, that is going to require discussion. But when it's something that's literally black and white, and the majority of us already know how we're going to vote, there is no need to waste more time and, yes, taxpayer dollars to make a decision that was going to happen anyway. So if trustees, so I like to explain this and how I feel about this very clearly so people understand what I'm trying to say. I don't hate committees. I don't hate not having other meetings with, and I'm always talking about public meetings and how important the public's role in this. It's very important. That's the biggest part of our process. But there is work that happens at committee level. There is work that happens outside of this room when we don't know all of the information that we need. A lot of the things that we bring forward to the public board meeting, to the public realm directly, are things that are very simple. Like really, what did we need to know about live streaming? It's 2020, for God's sake. So what were we going to talk about?
Please, audience.
What were we going to talk about, really? For an extra 2 hours and potentially 3 more months to sit there and talk about something that we already know how it works, we already know it exists. Our staff could probably set it up in the next 3 days, realistically. So that's what I'm asking my colleagues to think about. Yes, we have a governance committee. And our governance committee is going to have a lot of work. Believe me, I will bring you stuff to talk about at your governance committee. There are a lot of bylaws that really need to be looked at and changed and brought to the 21st century as well. But this is not one of them. This isn't something that you need to have a committee to talk about. So I urge my colleagues to think about what you're doing when you are referring and deferring motions. You're really telling the public, we don't want to talk about this right now. If you don't want to talk about this right now, then you need to provide a reason. What are the questions that you want answered? Who is going to help us answer them for you? Because at the end of the day, even if you take this to governance committee, or if you take anything to any committee, it still has to come to board in order to actually pass. And even after you take it to governance committee and you sit and talk about it for days and days and days, you have to bring it back to board, and at that point, any of us can still change it. It can still not pass. So this process is unavoidable. So taking something to a committee has to be meaningful. It has to have a reason. It can't just be just because we just don't want to have Trustee Cathy have too many motions passed today. So I urge you to think about what you're talking about or what you're asking for when you put a deferral or referral motion. That's what I was trying to say earlier before I was interrupted. Yes, there is cost involved for taxpayers. Yes, there is time involved for staff. So if you know how you're going to vote on something, please don't refer it or defer it. If you need further information, then tell us what that is. Tell us what you need for us, for staff, for administration, for trustees, the people who are bringing these ideas forward. Tell us what you need to help answer your questions, and then maybe we don't need to go through these very complicated loopholes. We can just have conversations like we're doing right now and pass a motion. So I'm completely against deferring this. I will be supporting it. It's very simple, folks. It's not some difficult bylaw to change. And by the way, if you do need to change a bylaw, you still have to do it here, and you still can do it here. And all it takes is also voting. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Trustee DeCroop. So now, Trustee Green, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, knowledge is power. There's a process in everything. There's laws in everything. And everything we do as a board, there's a process how we go about doing that. Our minutes are tied, they are legislative, and they are tied to the board document, and they are permanent retention, period. Peel District School Board minutes are written in style that are consistent with our bylaw. So for us to able to come to this table and present a motion to change something that ties in our bylaw, we cannot do it. As everyone knows, we are under review. And I can tell you, our bylaws are one of the things that's going to be dealing with in the very near future. If we need to do this, and this is something that trustee feel that needs to be done, it needs to be done in appropriate and proper way. That when we revamp our bylaw, then we make changes that are just. We cannot mislead the public on how we do things. There's process in how we do things. Every legislative government, city council, have process in how things are being done. And we as a board needs to make sure that we are following our own process. One of the reasons why we are under review, we have for years allowed things to happen that we did not follow process. And we are here today. It is time that we stop this and start following process where we educate our community about the process as a trustee and the scope of duty and what we need to do to follow. So I'm gonna, I'll be the first one to say, Trustee Davy and I don't agree on everything, and we may not say eye to eye on everything, but this is the right thing to do because we are having the directive coming to us very shortly where our bylaw will be changed. And if we need our minutes taken to be changed, when the bylaws are changed, that's when we do this work. And the public need to understand that and know that there is process and policies in place for a reason. So I will not, and I cannot sit here and say I can just put something on the floor. We're going to discuss it. Yes, it will come back to the board for the entire board to be voted on. But it's a committee that sit down along with legal to revamp the bylaws and redo the bylaws and outline all the piece that ties to it. And then if at any time, when it comes back to the table, if we want to do this, trustee can recommend an amendment to that. And that's how this needs to be done. We need to do it the right way and not jump through hoops just to... Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Green. I have Trustee Marchand next.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Chair. A couple of questions. One is actually, first and for the record, I have never billed and never will bill for any committee work. Just to clarify that, as I feel a little besmirched by somebody else's comment on that one. My first question would be, if this requires a change to the bylaw, is this motion actually in order, given that it doesn't direct a change in the bylaw? And if we can't change this without changing the bylaw, don't we actually need a direction to change the bylaw first? So that would be a question through you, Chair, or to...
Yes, so I'm going to defer that to our board reporter who can answer that question. Oh, did I? Sorry, I turned you off there. I turned you on. Okay, there you go. You're turned on. No, okay, no, don't press the button. I was pressing it for you.
Okay.
There you go.
In order to have a bylaw change, a notice first has to come to a previous meeting, and the following meeting, the bylaw has to be discussed. So yes, it needs a notice. There is a process.
Then in all due respect, sir, without the proper motion before us on the floor, I don't know that this is in order and we can even properly address this here. However, as everybody else has had their weigh in on it, so I will ask for your ruling when I am done speaking, if I may. My other concern with the motion itself is some of these responses may contain privileged information or specific information about staff. And if we're going to have fulsome responses to people's questions or to trustees' questions, we need to have that process in place for how that is vetted so people don't feel we're hiding some stuff and not others when we passed a motion saying we're going to print everything, because we know we don't have the power or the authority to release all the information that may be the responses to those questions. And then thirdly, I frankly see we should be publishing everything and giving reasons why not. So I would have supported the original. I will support the bylaw when it comes back properly, but I think I need to support in this point, the deferral. It was this Board of Trustees that decided to establish a governance committee to review these bylaws. I think we should perhaps give direction to that committee to put this one in there for one of those things to do, but I find, given those and the lack of that information available for me here, I do have to defer this one at this point. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, so you kind of asked a question at the beginning. Do you want me to answer that, or you answered it yourself? Sorry, I'll put you back online. Yeah.
I think, respectfully through you, Chair, I think it needs to be ruled whether or not it's actually in order and whether or not we can actually vote on this as it is. If we require a bylaw in order for this to be passed, we can't really pass this without the bylaw change anyways.
Right. So if we were talking to the motion, I would be talking to that comment. But since we're talking about deferral, then what the deferral process does, gives it to the governance committee where a parliamentary person will review it and see how it has to be done. Legal will review it. And then we come back, and if a motion can be created that achieves this goal or not, then that comes back from that governance committee as a motion that then we vote on. So we wouldn't be traditionally voting on this as a motion, a bylaw per se. We would be voting on a bylaw to come back from that referral. Okay, does that answer your question? Perfect. Any more comments or questions? Trustee McDonald?
Yes, I just wanted some clarification on why this is a governance issue and it's not being referred to the Trustee Review Committee.
Yes, that was asked, I think, when the governance committee was created, that the governance committee was really created for the bylaws. While the Trustee Review Committee, if you've been on that committee, I think you're a member, right? It typically reviews policies. Right. So we wanted to create the separation of the two. We knew also that the government is under review of us under governance, one of the things they do. So it was suggested that we should create a governance committee to get in line for possible action from the ministry under the review, where we've heard, trustees talk about bylaws needing change. We expect the government will be doing the same. So we need a committee working with parliamentary people, with legal people, to properly bring us in line with other boards, because there's a lot of differencing bylaws across the province. Okay, does that answer your question?
Sure. So I anticipate that we're going to be very busy as we're when the review comes out. So is it possible then to call a meeting of this governance committee? So because I think it's important for transparency, especially as we are following the directives and attempting to try and resolve a lot or huge issues that we have to resolve, that the public understands what's going on and they can have access to the question and responses. Now, we have never revealed in public question period answers.
So do you want me to
that-
answer your question now? You just asked a question.
Okay, sorry, that's the first
So,
question.
just one question at a time. I can't remember them all.
Okay.
So what you're asking me is, you want to have the governance committee convened and get moving forward. So I am the chair of that committee, and we have 5 members on that. I'm waiting for the directives and to look at their directives, because they may say we got to do specific things that will become priority of the governance committee. So we're waiting for that to happen, and then we're going to have a governance meeting, and then we're going to start the process. And if this is
You are the
referred
only
into that
participant.
committee, then that will be one of the items that will be addressed in there. Obviously, priority given by the government because their directives, and if we don't follow the directives, they bring in a supervisor.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, does that answer your question?
Okay, so you said you're sitting and waiting. So suppose it takes 2 months, right?
What takes 2 months?
The report. So
No, we're understanding the report's coming shortly.
Okay.
Okay?
So, no, I'm being facetious. That's
Because
fine.
just using past practices of what York and stuff,
Okay.
it's very shortly.
Okay. So we say here that my colleague mentioned about public confidential information, but I know at question period, we never give, even in the public, we wouldn't disclose confidential staff information or anything anyway.
I understand, and that's a question, and then I listened to that question, and I think that's more of a question that would be asked in the governance committee about, just echoing, do we look at any things that would be private, public, and stuff. We presently have a process in place for reviewing all questions and minute taking, but that could be a revamping of the minutes as well. I know there's been comments, do we include more information? Do we include less information? These are all things that will be part of the review because our parliamentarians have already started looking at other boards and seeing their work, what their practices are after they've been reviewed and told to fix their bylaws. So this is, again, part of that process. We'll be all part of that, part of the questions that will be asked and will be answered. And remember, anything that comes from the governance committee then comes to the board, and then we vote on bylaws as a process. And we can debate those bylaws, amend those bylaws on a per bylaw basis, a group bylaw. Again, I can't know how they're going to come. Are they going to come one at a time, group at a time? We'll have to wait and see.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anyone else have any comments on the referral? So I'm going to have Trustee Davies close the debate on the referral to the governance committee.
And again, Trustee DeCruz, Trustee McDonald, I'm not trying to be difficult. I just have a code of conduct to follow, and that says follow your bylaws. And I just had a question on whether it has whether it violates a bylaw, and I still don't know. So that's why I wanted to go to a committee, and the committee can come back and say, no, it's not violating anything. Go ahead, guys. And then away we go. But the way it's sitting now is we're going to have to vote tonight. And it's going to have to be a yes or no, and it has to be tonight. And I'd like to see more stuff, get more information before we have to make final decisions. I'm a new trustee, and I apologize for that. But again, thanks.
Okay. So he just closed debate, Trustee McDonald. So, so we're now into the voting of the referral, even though it says deferral, the referral to the governance committee. So I'm going to hand it over to start the voting process. Sorry? Oh, did Trustee Crocker just go to the washroom? Okay, so can we just... We have quorum, so we'll carry on. Use your finger. Press the button. Do I have Trustee Lawton on the phone? I lost her again? So since she's not...
You are the only participant.
No one there? Okay, so that means I have... How many people? I only have 9 people. So a majority is 5 at this point in time. So let's stop the voting. I have 7 in favor of referring this to the Governance Committee, and 2. Okay, next. Okay, we have 9.6 that we're deferring to the next meeting, as we did at the beginning of the agenda. And so we have motion 9.7, Trustee Sohi's regarding the English as a second language motion. So, Trustee Sohi, do you have a seconder of your motion?
Yes, I do.
Okay, who's the seconder? Trustee DeCroop. That's recorded. Okay, so based on that, you can open up 5 minutes on this item.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, as a mover of the motion, I would like our board to conduct a review of ESL, English as a Second Language Program, and ELL, English Language Learners, STEP profiles in our school board. Members of my constituency have brought forward concerns regarding the ad hoc manner in which STEP profiles are open for Canadian-born ELL students. Constituency members, all visible minorities, have expressed that their children do not identify themselves as being ELL students, and some have expressed that their children do not speak any other language at all or any variation of English. Parents are wanting to find out more information on what types of assessments or criteria are being used to identify a student requiring ELL support. Just wanted to share an example that in one of my schools in Brampton in North, more than 50%, which is more than 300 students of a school, the students were Canadian-born students were identified as ELL. These Canadian-born students did not have any recommendations, next steps, or a plan put in a place communicated to parents by any means, including via the report cards, disregarding any accountability. And one of the schools in South, when I looked at that, had less than 15 students. Furthermore, parents have expressed that their child was placed on a STEP profile in lieu of other academic sports in the school, even when the child did not speak a second language. It has been the experience of families that having an ESL or ELL profile is detrimental as this limits access other special education assessments such as speech impediments and learning disabilities, etc. After further inquiry, several high school students have come forward with concerns of their own being labeled as an ESL student when never directly receiving ELL or ESL sports. This predominantly impacts students who are racialized and come from homes of diverse backgrounds. I recommend the administration engage in an ESL program review that takes into consideration concerns raised by the families as well as relevant data of achievement of Canadian-born ELL students in the Peel District School Board. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Sohi. So, Trustee Marchand?
Yes, thank you, and through you, Chair. I will certainly be supporting my fellow trustees' motion. I do have one question, though, if I may. Does the board currently differentiate, and how does the board currently differentiate between ESL and ELL in terms of stats and programming?
So I think.
Yep. So, Associate Director?
Thank you. So through you, Chair, the word ESL, English as a Second Language, is the program, and the students, we call them ELLs, which is the English Language Learners. That's it.
Okay. Thank you. Trustee DeCroop.
Thank you, Chair. I'm very supportive of this motion. I'm very supportive of conducting this review of the ESL program and how we are deciding who is an ESL student and what are the markers that we're looking at. And to be very clear, I don't think that ESL the ESL program is not an important thing. It's a very important thing in a society where we do have a high number of immigration. But I think it's important for us to determine if students are being streamed into it unnecessarily. And on the other hand, I do also recognize that there are a lot of children who are born in Canada, but sometimes their English may not be as proficient and we do recognize that as other kids, because maybe they're spending most of their time speaking another language. And when you're 2 years old or 3 years old and you're not necessarily interacting with the outside world, and if your first language is predominantly not English, then maybe you are going to need some additional support when you do enter an English speaking school system. So that is something that we do recognize is there. But it is important for us to review the program to ensure that the kids who do need the support are receiving it, and the kids who may not necessarily need the support are not being streamed into it unnecessarily. So I'm very supportive of this review. This may be something we'll have to do anyway, and I hope my colleagues support it.
Thank you. Trustee Nar.
Through you, Chair, just to echo some points that have already been made, I fully support Trustee Sohi's motion about ESL program because I believe it's so important that the program is reviewed, as it has definitely been a while, and many years have passed since its last review. And with the changes over the years in demographics and population, the review is imperative. Listening to parents and families and even student needs during the review will help ensure the program is catered towards students who truly need the support, instead of having other students who don't need the program be put in the program with ESL profiles. Reviewing the process and assessments of opening ESL profiles for students through parent and student concerns will help ensure it is done in a fair and equitable manner for all students, and really provide support to students who will benefit from the program. So I fully support Trustee Sohi's motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Trustee Green.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have no problem supporting the motion, but Trustee Sohi, can you just confirm for me, because I'm concerned, and I know after talking to Associate Director Graywall, this is on the radar already anyhow, but I just want to ask you in terms, are you putting any timeline on this?
Through you, Chair, Trustee Green, Vice Chair Green, I understand that we are waiting for the board review report, and right. I understand that we are currently doing the French review.
Right.
So that's why I didn't put a timeline right now, because I would wait for the directives from the review from the ministry and see if we have to do something immediately, and then we can do it after that.
Okay, with that
said, I understand that.
Okay,
yes.
So with that said, I can support this motion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Trustee McDonald.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. The day after this motion, we got notice of motion, I received an email from one of my constituents, and again, the timing was just impeccable, because this person is now an adult, but came to the country started when I was in grade 7 in 2013, and she attended a specific school, and she was put in an ESL class. She talks about being labeled, and that's the main concern about her with the ESL program. She talks about being labeled, being called disabled, stupid, and being made to feel ashamed. She spoke about the fact that she had no expectations for her, and also they had incorrectly diagnosed her, she said, with different learning, like ADHD, and just because in her email she said she didn't master the language properly, but she said it was more because of her accent, and she said in bold letters, she said she was labeled and it was wrong. And today she has completed her BA in Neuroscience and is in the process of completing her master's. And she just wanted to know, me to know that all these predictions were false. And she wanted to know how and exactly are we going to be looking at the the English as a Second Language program. So I'd like to thank Trustee Sohi for putting this on the floor. And it was just really incredible that receiving this email. So thank you, and I will be supporting your motion.
Okay. Trustee Aurora.
Thank you. And through your chair, it is very disheartening to know that we don't already have protocols or practices in place to review the ESL program already. And it's also very disheartening to know that many of the students who are in the program may not even need to be in that program. And so as Trustee McDonald mentioned, some of these students have been labeled. And as throughout my term as a student trustee, I've really noticed that there is this social stigma between students in the North and students in the South. And I have reason to believe that this might be because of the incorrect labeling of students who are in different programs and compared to the number of students that we have in certain programs as in both regions. And so I think that this toxic environment that we've created is very important to disestablish, and I think that this review might be a step forward in actually eliminating some of the stigmas that we do have for students in certain communities and demographics, which is why I'm fully in support of this motion. I think that it's very imperative that we do assess our students regularly to ensure that, yes, have you met the standards of regular academic students, or do you still need to be in the program, and do you still require the support? So thank you, Trustee Sohi, for bringing this forward. I think it's really important.
Okay. Trustee Benjamin.
Through you, Chair, I fully support this motion because the last review, I think, took place in 2013. And I think from what we have heard, Trustee Sohi talking about her own personal experience, I'm convinced that we need this review, and I will fully support it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? So, Trustee Sohi, you get to close the debate on this motion.
Thank you. Thank you, my colleagues. Thank you for your support. As Trustee DeCruz says, that this may require certain students. I just want to, share this, that one of the high schools, when I looked at, there were 118 students with the ESL profile open and only 20 students in ESL core group. So we do need those ESL core group classes, but so many times that it's the ESL profiles are just open and not being, reviewed. My own experience, a lot of times, yes, there are Canadian-born children, Canadian-born students who do need that extra support, but a lot of times it's also a false positive. My own experience, my son, who's Canadian-born, had his ESL profile open when he was in grade 1, and now he is in grade 10, and still his ESL profile is open. For 10 years, there was no communication to me as a parent. There was no the plan in place. So I can see the hundreds and hundreds of students in my constituency where there is no communication with the parents and there is no plan for them. And when I inquired into it, there is the administrators that we have to do a proper assessment and a proper protocol. This issue impacts visible minority students. Equity and inclusivity must be considered and barriers must be removed that take away from the student's success. Parents are not happy with the criteria being the observation of language spoken at home as the assessment. As often we have the reviews of the French programs, so we must consider reviewing the ESL program, and because this was reviewed as the Trustee Benjamin also mentioned that it was reviewed 7 years ago. So it's a time, and it's a time that we really look deep into our protocols, and we must not label our students. And there is a lot of trauma which is also involved around this. So thank you for my trustee colleagues for supporting this. Thank you.
Great. So we're going to go to a vote again.
You are the only participant.
So we have no one on the phone, so we're down to 10 people at the board, and a vote of 6 of yes will be the pass. So we're going to start the voting. There we go. Everyone voted? Okay, let's end the voting. And we had unanimous. Okay, next. Okay. That item 9.7 we just did. So we have 9.8 removed, as we did at the beginning of the meeting with agenda. Now we have 9.9. That is the motion put on the floor by Trustee or Vice Chair Green on canceling the March 24th meeting. So I'm.
Okay.
So do I have seconder of your motion? Yes. Trustee Cameron is the seconder of that motion. So I'll put it on the floor. Trustee Green, you have 5 minutes to talk about introduction.
So thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I'm not going to get into all the details because I think I alluded to Trustee already in camera why we need to do this. And also after, as you know, the Near-Not Board was under review by the government, and I've able to gone through and review the directive that came out of the Near-Not Board, and I also look at York Board and the number of work and what board had to do. The Near-Not Board had to cancel 2 meetings just to meet timelines, and some of these timelines are very, very close timeline, tight timelines to meet. So at this time, I'm just asking my trustee colleagues to support this motion that we cancel our March 24th meeting. And again, however, please don't make any plan. Please hold that date because we're going to need to meet the ministry directive. So I'm just asking for your support to do this so we can get out the door quickly once the directives are here.
Okay. Do I have anyone who wants to talk to this motion? Seeing none, do you want to close the motion?
I think everything is clear, Mr. Chair.
Okay. So I'm heading over to start the voting, please. Okay, please select your vote. And I think everyone's selected, so why don't we end the vote? And we have 9, 4, and 1 person didn't vote. Oh, not here.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
We do have quorum.
But we have quorum, and we had unanimous of all the people voting. So that motion passes. So I could have called a recess, people. I have to go too. So maybe before question period, can you wait till question period, or you want? Okay, so I'm going to have a 5-minute recess. Okay, I don't need a motion. I can just call a 5-minute recess, and we're going to use the washroom, and I'll be right back in 9:55.
will be leaving at 11.
No, we're not. We don't go past 11 anymore.
Yeah, just full disclosure, I'll be leaving at 11. So regardless.
No, we don't go past 11 anymore. Well, no,
either here or in there.
Trustees, can I have you return to your seat? Trustees, can I have you return to your seat, please? Thank you. Okay. Okay. Okay, the lineup was a little longer, the washroom. So we're going to move on to, now we're on to, we voted for 9.9, so we're now moving on to item 10, which we have reports from directors and staff, which we have no reports from directors and staff, so that's good. We're now going to move on to item 11, items for receipt. So we're going to do a consent agenda, which means we're going to accept all these items that are here to receive. Some are waiting future agendas to be addressed. We're going to accept these all together since the receipt. So do I have Trustee Marchand to put them on the floor? Trustee Balbir Sohi, do you want to second that? Okay. So we're putting them all together. Does anyone want to talk to any individual item? No, seeing no one. So now we're going to go back to electronic voting. Sorry, I apologize. Didn't see you. Oh, I'm on the wrong screen. That's why. I apologize. Trustee Crocker.
Thank you, Chair. Through you. 11.4. Trustees will recall the delegation last meeting. The delegate, I know, has a number of outstanding questions, some of which she sent our way in the weeks before her delegation, and the answer is hopeful for her, but at the same time she has some operational questions that I believe could fairly be asked. Now, is there somebody we can hook her up with going forward to talk to, deal with some of this stuff?
Yes, Trustee Graywall. Associate. Too many. It's late already. So, Associate Director Graywall will be taking those questions.
Very, very good. I'll connect with her then.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Perfect. Trustee McDonald.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. Just with regards to 11.5, so I'm disappointed that we haven't done anything with regards to the United Nations declaration as the decade 2015 to 2024 as an International Decade of Peoples of African Descent. So that's why I had put forward the motion. I did, so we can discuss it next week. But thank you for the response.
Thank you, Trustee McDonald. Anyone else? Okay, so we're going to start our voting. Please. Okay, let's stop the voting and see where we land. Okay, we have 10 out of 10 for yes, so all these items are received. Okay, we're going to go to item 12, our OPSPA Connects, 12.1, 12.2. Do we have someone putting that on the floor? So Trustee DeCroop, put that on the floor, please. Trustee Green, would you like to second that? Anyone want to talk to it? No? You thinking to talk to it? No? Okay. So we're going to start our voting process again. I'm waiting. Is it waiting? We're 12.1, 12.2. We're going to vote. We're bringing them all together as one consent. There you go. Okay, everyone voted. Okay, close or end the vote. And we have a receipt of 10. Perfect. So it's 10 for 10. Passes. And now we're going to go on to item 13, communications for action or receipt. Nothing's there. Items 14, reports from trustees on council association. Do I have anyone who has any reports from association stuff? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 15, questions from the board. So I'll start down at our student trustee, Nard. Do you have a question? Trustee Aurora? Okay, let me turn your mic on. There you go.
Thank you. And through you, Chair, in light of the many cases that have of the coronavirus that have increased globally, I know that the Peel District School Board just released today that all international trips will be canceled during the March break. Will we be canceling international trips that are not taking place during the March break, if there are any?
So I think that's associate. Okay, sorry. So you want to press your button? Sure. Okay, you're online. Yep, you're good.
Yeah. So through you, Chair. So you're referring to trips that happen after the March break. So we're carefully monitoring, and certainly we have been given a great deal of guidance from our Peel Public Health around risks. We're also looking at any types of warnings in terms of the onset. This is monitored very carefully. We know that there are particular dates, and we've been working closely with our schools. Certainly, I can ask Associate Director Harmon to jump in, but we've been checking on deadlines, et cetera. So when would be the absolute deadline when we need to notify? But it's currently a week by week. And again, also looking at, I know I'm connecting with colleague boards, directors, and looking at some consistency in practice with other boards.
Good.
Thank you.
Good. Is that it? Okay. Trustee Crocker? Trustee McDonald? Yep.
Sorry, I was just, with regards to the article that has just come out, like within the last hour, I think, with regards to the trespassing letter that was issued to a member of the public. I just wanted to...
So just to let you know, we can't talk about it. So we can't talk about it.
So can we talk about it
You can talk about
private?
it in committee, yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay. Trustee Marchand. Any questions?
No, I was going to point out that the chair of the committee is here, but he seems to have
Okay. Okay. Trustee DeCroop.
Thank you, Chair McDonald. I have hypothetical questions.
Yep.
In regards to a hypothetical situation that may be of public interest.
Okay.
Because I think the public needs to know how our hypothetical stuff works. So, in case a letter is written on behalf of the board and the word "the board" is put in quotations, does that include me?
Good question.
So through you, Chair, there are a number of letters that when they are written and they're operational in nature, often they are sent, it depends on the level, of course. There are some that are sent for me as the director on behalf of staff. Some are sent, depending on the type of letter. It may be a letter that's sent out from a superintendent. So there are a number of things. If they're tied to operations, we have operational procedures that have specific operations, sometimes tied to legislation. Anything that would actually be referring to the board, as in the Board of Trustees, would have to have gone through a board process and voted upon through motion or board regulation. But there are a number of things that when they're issued by the board, they may be operational and just coming from staff.
Point of clarification, if I may.
No, I can. Oh, go ahead, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Trustee Marchand?
So is there any differentiation on our letterhead or when letters go out? So if the Board of let's say the Board of Trustees versus the board, I always had that problem anyways, and it's been acknowledged before that the act was poorly written to have a board within a board. But if I don't know if there is. If there isn't, if that could be looked at. Sorry, thank you.
All I know from
and
I'll ask that answer some of that, Director, before you want to answer. Usually, when it's my name at the bottom, it's from the trustees, and when it's the director's name at the bottom, it's the operational board. And you're right, there are two boards: the Board of Trustees and the Board of I'll call it the Operation School Board. Okay. You want to add more?
Just to add, appreciate through you, Chair, Trustee Marchand's comment that there are things that if they're not clearly understood by our public, that it is something worth and through the process and exploring with in terms of governance, that is something that would appropriately be put on a table for discussion, because we may know clearly what it means, but I think if I'm hearing the question correctly or the comment correctly, it's important that our public also understands the difference.
So hypothetically, a letter is written about an issue that happened in public to a member of the public. It says the word "the board" in quotations in it, and it says on behalf of the board. And at the bottom of that, there's all of our names, because our names are on all the letterheads. And my name's included in that letterhead. So I know that when you're sending a letter about, I don't know, busing or whatever it is, my name's going to be on the letterhead. That's normal. And that's an operational thing. And that's a communication. Sorry, I'm talking. Can you guys listen to me, please?
Yeah, we're listening.
Thank you. Because it's a good way to not misunderstand each other. So when you send a letter to someone specific, and put on behalf of the board, I see that, especially, I'm not going to get into the what's in the Toronto Stars, and you can go and read it, but specifically that entire situation probably refers to the 12 people here. My understanding when I read it. How does that not come for a vote, and why does that go from the director, not the chair, if it's something that happened in a public realm, a public space, about a public thing?
So some of those are specific to the items, so we'll have to talk about that in committee. I think also some other stuff we need to get some clarification from legal to properly answer your questions and understand that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's very important that we know who. So when we talk about we're sending a letter on behalf of the board, it's very important that the board is informed what you're telling the people, the public.
Right, but as you know, the last letter in our initials is board, right? School board. So I think there's that problem of perception, and so why don't we take that to our legal and ask for some legal clarification on that, and maybe we should be changing the wording or not. That's a good point. Thank you. Any other questions? I'd like to finish her questions, and then we'll come back to you. Trustee McDonald, is that okay? Okay. Do you have any other questions, Trustee DeCroo?
No, I think that's it for now.
Okay.
I think we just need to clarify the process.
Sorry, I just turned. Sorry, I thought you said no. Okay.
I get very concerned when my name is included on things that I first don't know anything about, and second, really would disagree with. So please not in my name, and I would like to be informed if something's happening on my behalf.
Absolutely. Okay. Thank you. Trustee McDonald, yes.
Thank you. Well, I was going to raise that part of that concern I had to with the opening statement of a letter. When letters are going out from the director, I think it needs to be clear what is going out on behalf of as the director of education, as opposed to when the board of trustees are sending a letter, because the last communication, which is now in the public domain, would imply that we, the board, have sanctioned this letter, the board of trustees, which we didn't. So by process, because it's my understanding that if a letter is going out on behalf of the board of trustees, even though you are chair of the board, you on your own can't just write a letter and sign it on behalf of the board of trustees. We have to vote on it. And I was shocked when my constituent gives me a letter which is implying that I have somehow been participating in this process or this letter writing, and I did not know anything about it. And even when letters of such a nature go out, is there any, so I don't know if you want to ask legal, what's the responsibility to inform trustees when something of such a nature? Because I know without going on to the operational, so I do understand the difference between operational and governance. However, it's my understanding if there are issues that's going to be such a political hotbed, which I am sure most people would have understood that this would be one of them, that we don't, as trustees, have to find out things in the media or from our constituent, because then you can't react. It's like, I didn't know about it. Yep. So just if we could get those things sorted out, because I was shocked to receive
as I said,
this
we'll get some opinion on that and get some clarification for you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Cameron. Vice Chair Green. Trustee Davies. Trustee Benjamin. Trustee Sohi. There we go.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. A couple of trustees, actually, my colleagues already asked about discussion, but I think as we are not having now the March 24th meeting, so the parents have reached out to many of us, and I would like to have that answer to the public about the COVID-19 virus concerns of travel during the March break. So the question is, do we have a protocol in place to deal with the situation of students and their families traveling and then coming back after the March break? So are we identifying those families? Or this is a question by another parent who was asking that I'm not traveling, but I want to know if in my kids' class anyone traveled, and I would like to have that information. But I know it's a private, under the private policy, privacy information release, we won't be able to release that much specific information, but still, how do we have that safety in place for our students and our staff?
So, Director will respond.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, I'll begin, and certainly I'll turn things over to Associate Director Harmon if necessary. Again, similar to the response earlier, we are in very close contact with our regional public health and getting their direction and advice in terms of our protocols in this respect. Our message has been very clear through public health that we are notifying families to be aware and careful and watch for travel, and be mindful that if they feel they're at any risk, they should be on their honor to seek some medical advice, attention, and potentially self-identify and quarantine. Through you, Chair, the trustee is correct that we have to be careful about privacy. We also have to be extremely careful about unnecessarily on our own excluding students or families from the school environment. We would not do that. But certainly if we get a directive from public health that elevates our requirement, we will certainly act accordingly. At this time, that specific question has been asked of public health, and they have said that we're not required at this time to give that message, other than to have families be very mindful of where they may be going and what the potential risks may be, and that they should be very mindful that if they're if they don't feel that that they're coming back completely healthy, that they should self-identify.
Thank you.
Thank you, and wash your hands.
So sorry, and to add to that, I know this wasn't a question asked, but we've been given very clear direction on washing hands for a significant amount of time is the absolute best way to defend and to be proactive, more so than any other method, including hand sanitizer. Washing hands with soap regularly is the way to go.
Yes, and you're supposed to hum the birthday song. Good. Any more questions? So, okay, we'll move on to public question period. Okay, question period was introduced by trustees to allow members of the community to ask questions of the school board. All questions will be addressed to the attention of the chair and will be issue-based. Like the delegations, it will be respectful and not name anyone, any position or organization in a disrespectful way. If you'd like to make a comment, we would refer you to our delegation process, since this time of the agenda is questions only. To make things more fair, the Vice Chair and I have allowing a question per person. This time we've decided to allow a question with one follow-up per person, and then you'll go back to the line and allow other people to come through until we can get through the 15 minutes of questioning. Please come forward, introduce yourself, indicate where you are from, and ask, as I say, one question with one follow-up. One question at a time, as I say. I will do my best to answer and direct the questions to the appropriate person if I can't answer it. Otherwise, we will respond to you at a future date. By Bylaw G10, question period will be 10 minutes unless, under my discretion, I deem it to extend. So, let's begin.
As you all know, my name is Cheryl Woolnough. I'm a qualified teacher here at the Peel District School Board who strives each and every day to inspire success, confidence and hope within the students I teach, while also following Ontario teachers' ethical standards, care, respect, trust and integrity, being mindful about speaking out in the past, and again now, alongside the mutterings of being blocked here at the board office. Regarding additional leadership roles and career suicide, I carefully crafted a piece that Trustee MacDonald thankfully read on my behalf. My questions. As a taxpaying citizen, I ask from each one of you trustees, not collectively, a letter outlining how you, in your wards, plan to support Black students in the Black community by taking actionable measures to bring awareness to your communities regarding anti-Black racism, and how you will gather support within your schools and communities to start dismantling anti-Black racism, even in communities that have few or no Black students. Anti-black racism has damaged the lives and mental health connected to thousands of black students and staff over the years in our school board, and it will continue to do so if decisions made continue to align with anti-black racism and white supremacy. You are either a racist or an anti-racist. There is no middle ground. Which one are you, and what will you do?
So you've said that you're going to ask a question to all the trustees, if I understand what you're doing in the community. So in that process, all questions come to the chair. So if you wish to have each trustee respond, you will have to email them individually, and they will respond individually.
And the reason why, through you, Chair, I mentioned that is because you all have different demographics within your communities, some more marginalised than others. And the only way we can actually dismantle this is if we actually work collectively together, as opposed to one letter stating what you will collectively do when each of you come from different communities. This has been going on for decades, and it's damaging the well-being of our students, and it's damaging the well-being of our staff, because we have to live this as well alongside our students. And I know the review is coming out. I don't know what the review is going to reveal, but all I know for a fact as a black female working with black students and marginalized students, racism, anti-black racism and Islamophobia is huge, and it's something that we have to be on board to support and to dismantle.
Okay, so email each of the trustees and they'll take action.
Thank you. So I look forward to each one of you from each domain to respond back. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next question. Come forward. Please introduce your name and where you're from.
Hello, trustees. My name is Valerie Frantolizzi. I am actually a French immersion teacher with the Peel Board. Been here for 11 years. Today, I am approaching you first as a parent. Fittingly, Ms. McDonald mentioned today how she didn't appreciate finding out something through the media. And unfortunately, that is how I found out that you as a board decided to cut 30 French immersion grade 1 classes as of September 2020. Now, I understand that this is being done on a trial basis and that you're going to look at evidence afterwards. But unfortunately, this proposal is now being done at the expense of my daughter, who now has been denied a French immersion position in September of 2020, even though she has a perfectly bilingual mother, an older brother who is in the system. And this has to do with equity.
Please, can we focus on the question?
Yeah, 100%. So I just wanted to know what your plan is as a board to do with the hundreds of students who are now being placed on waiting lists and are now being denied basically what I think is a human right in Canada to have access to both languages.
So you highlight a big problem that started well before this year when we passed the motion to reduce the classes of 30 in the grade 1. If you recall, it was 8 years ago when we did our review. We couldn't keep up with the French teacher demand for the students, and we had to put a cap of 25% in. And that worked for a while, but unfortunately, we don't have teachers. And the problem is, we have right now, today, classrooms of French immersion kids with English teachers. And that's not why you as a parent in French immersion will want to hear. So we had to make a change. We don't have 30 French teachers to go in grade 1. And that's what we had to make that change. There is a review underway, and that review will try to figure out maybe a different model, different ways. This isn't just a Peel problem. This is an entire province and country problem outside Quebec. And we can't solve this by the methods we have presently in place. And so the review is going to look at different ways. Other jurisdictions in Ontario have tried this. Halton has done different things. Other school boards have done different things. And we're trying to get to the root of the problem. And it's not that we're not trying to recruit more teachers. We go to all recruiting fairs. We go across the country to attract teachers to our board. And we're doing our best. But unfortunately, the best is not good enough for having quality French instruction in our classroom.
Could I ask a follow-up question?
Yes, as I said, you can have a follow-up. And I understand this. Unfortunately, I think before this event, we had 600 kids in waiting lists last year. So this is part of the process that we did when we capped the system, because we couldn't put 20 per kids. That would be 30 more French teachers. We didn't have them. And we've determined we don't have them. So sorry for the long answer, but I just wanted to give you the big history.
I mean, being part of the board, I know the history and I could offer up solutions to you, but I feel like as a teacher and as a parent, I wasn't given that opportunity to give my input, because even if I speak to my administrators, they would say the same thing, that they were caught off guard, whether it was done intentionally or unintentionally. And I guess my follow-up question to you is, if you decided to put in or reduce this number, given the fact that we are trying to be equitable as a board and we have a lottery system, if we're eliminating these classes and we are not informing principals about it, so when they're advertising the programs to the grade one, to the future grade one population, they're not being, forthcoming about the numbers. So could we not have done something like receiving information from kindergarten teachers about who they think might be fitting candidates? I guess my question is, could we not have done more? So as opposed to simply cutting 30 classes, could there not have been further steps taken or additional measures to ensure that this wouldn't have happened? Thank you.
And thank you for that question. And we would love to solve this problem not going this route. And we've been, wasn't something we determined this year. Every year, every time we go to staff in a French immersion, we talk about the problem of finding French teachers. And it just came to a critical point that we were going to start a French review that wouldn't start and wouldn't get an answer for the following year, yet we were going to have a minimum of 30 classes without a French teacher in it. So we had to make, unfortunately, the timing was not the greatest. It would have been nice if we made this determination back in September, and then we could have messaged better. And absolutely, we would have liked done that, but we just couldn't do it. So I appreciate your concerns and your points. They're very valid, and we would love to solve this problem, but we just can't find the teachers right now. But there's a review in process. They're working with Canadian Parents of French, and they're working and will message and have interaction with parents and staff and engage everyone to find out a solution, because this is only a temporary fix. We need a long-term solution to this.
And I just hope that you'll be very vocal about that, because as a French teacher, I could give you a list of ways that you could try and retain your French teachers, because that's a major issue within our board. Why is it that teachers are only signing that 5-year contract and then leaving as fast as they can after? I, for one, am still here after 11 years, giving it every single day to those students to make sure that they're getting the best quality of French.
And I appreciate that.
Thank you.
So, next question. Do we have another question? Just to let you know, we have 6 minutes left. One question with one follow-up. So please try to ask questions, not comments, because, sorry.
You were not as difficult with the previous individual, which we do appreciate. I'm very supportive of things you're saying, but you were not as hardline on the bylaws with the individual who was just speaking.
Okay, I will.
Of different questions, follow-up questions. You were clearly having a conversation, which I encourage. I think you should do that more often. Just do it with everyone equally and fairly, please.
Absolutely. Thank you. Next, your name and...
Sean Semper White.
Hi, Sean.
My question is, am I able to thank everybody for being here tonight?
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
Am I able to thank everybody for being here tonight?
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to thank everybody. I don't know who you guys are or who you guys are. All those folks up the back there. All these people here who are passionate or are hurting about what we're dealing with. I want to thank every single person for being here tonight, for fighting for equity, for fighting for balance, for fighting for due process. I want to thank you all. I saw a lot of stuff on Twitter. I wasn't able to be here at that last meeting, but I'm back in town, so I just wanted to pop in. I'm a former youth worker, foster parent, in-class help for a lot of these troubled youth. My challenge right now is I'm seeing all this stuff happening in Mississauga. I'm like, how do I impact? How do I help? And I'm here tonight to say I'm really happy that all of you are involved and backing each other up from your perspective. So thank you.
Do you have a question? No, just a comment? Okay, thank you. Next, please, question. I'd like questions, though, just to let you know. Yes, one question with a follow-up. Your name, please?
Hi, my name is Andrea Vasquez Jimenez.
Yep.
My question is, a couple of years ago, the organization La N, where I am co-director of, along with many other community organizations such as Black Lives Matter Toronto, had advised trustees as well as the director of education in regards to Peel Region research and Peel District School Board research, advising about the harms of police presence in schools, such as in 2015, Fighting an Uphill Battle, the report on consultations into the well-being of Black youth in Peel Region. We also have other research from Peel District School Board, this one particularly September 2016, Perspectives of Black Male Students in Secondary School, Understanding the Success and Challenges. Quote, from page 9, at school, Black students feel they are under surveillance. Some students feel like they are being followed by school staff, that staff are constantly checking on them. For many students, school...
Can we get to the question because we're getting short in time?
Yeah, you will,
cut you off.
right after this one. However, other students feel uneasy. Although police presence in school is supposed to make students feel safe for some Black students, police presence has the opposite effect due to racial profiling they have experienced. The question is, the Peel District School Board has a We Rise Together action plan that seeks to remove the barriers for Black students. We have researched that police presence in schools actually further entrenches the school to prison pipeline. Will you actually be you and your trustees will be moving forward with the human rights framework of ensuring that all spaces are caring, healthy, and equitable for all students and not some students by removing the SRO program?
Thank you. I believe you sent me an email today. I'm sorry you're leaving the podium, but I believe you sent me an email today about meetings. So, I will be responding to that, and we can have a conversation on that. Your question is not simply yes and no, and I think it's a little more detailed. We're also waiting for the review of the government to come and see what kind of comments they're going to say around this whole subject as well.
Okay, this is just also a human rights framework.
Absolutely.
It is also a legal obligation, and some of the data coming out of Toronto District School Board from the Caring and Safe Schools annual report from 2018 to 2019, post-SRO program removal actually shows an exponent drop in suspension and expulsions, particularly for Black students.
Absolutely, thank you.
And it's your duty and obligation, everybody's. It's a lawsuit waiting to happen.
Okay, so I have 1 minute and 30 seconds left, so please ask your questions. Please ask questions. Comments just take time.
My name is Sherry. I have been to meetings and have watched the attitude and behavior of trustees that are in front of me. And I found it appalling and disrespectful how you engage with parents in general, but Black parents specifically. Can you tell me what, if any, anti-Black racism training, equity and inclusion training, and human rights training trustees and staff are required or mandated to do, and when that has taken place? First question. Second question. I understand that Minister Lecce has provided funding for 2 Black student graduation coaches for Peel District School Board. Can you tell me what the role will be for this position? Have they started? What schools are they going to be in? And what the goals are for this position that is aimed to increase Black student graduation?
Good, thank you for those questions. So the first question I can't answer off the top of my head to know all the list of training that we've had, being 17 years, but what we'll focus on is probably the last 4.
Sorry, you can't answer the question if you've had anti-Black racism training?
No, we have.
We've
had it. I just can't tell you all the training we have. I've been here 17 years, so I can't tell you all.
Everybody here has had anti-Black racism training. You've had equity.
No, but
who has? Can you raise your hand and tell me who has? So that is not everybody.
So we've had it, but you want a long list, and I will get.
No,
that
I didn't
list
want a long. I didn't ask for that. I just wanted to know if you had had it.
Okay, yeah.
So that's who raised their hands. They have not.
Yeah.
So it's not mandated. You should know the answer to that question.
Is it mandated?
Are you? Yes. Does everybody? Are they all required to do it?
Excuse me. It's not a dialogue, okay? Not a confrontation. Please let me finish.
So now you're calling me confrontational?
No, please let me finish.
I'm just asking a question, Mr. McDonald.
Please let me finish.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So, we started over 3 years ago realizing that we had a systemic anti-black racism in our board. All trustees were part of that process. We passed a motion. We Rise was created. Part of the Re-Rise that everyone has anti-black racism training. Okay? Does that answer your question?
Do you have equity and inclusion and diversity training?
That was done before this board, this term of the board, yes.
Point of order, Chair.
Yes. What's the point of order? What bylaw are you wanting to refer
Let
to?
her speak.
I know, I'm just asking what bylaw.
In the interest of, we're trying to move forward, we're trying to build trust in the community. In the interest of honesty and transparency, would you mind finishing the story of the anti-black racism training and how much of it we've had?
Thank you.
As a board?
I'd be interested to hear that.
But is it
It's my question, so yes, it's appropriate.
So I answer your question, did we have it? Is it a fulsome and appropriate training that I think we need to expand on? No, yes, we need to expand on it. So I'm quite sure the report is going to say that we need to do it. And so I'm waiting for those directives, and we're going to all
So you
start a
only do it
training.
when you're directed to do so by the minister? It's not something you do otherwise?
Pardon me?
You would only do that
So let's stop.
if you were directed to by
Okay,
the minister. You
so-
would not do it otherwise. That
Okay,
was
so
my
let's-
question.
okay,
You said,
Sharon-
pardon me. I
Sharon,
wanted to just respond
Sharon,
back.
please.
Uh-huh.
Okay, don't ask a lot of questions. I said
You
no, please,
said, pardon
please,
me,
please,
and I restated my
please.
question.
Let me finish. Okay, so you had a second question after answer. Did we have any training? You got the votes on hand. So you wanted to hear about our coaching program. So I will turn it over to the director, and he will answer that question.
So through you, Chair, we did receive funding from the ministry to hire 2 graduation coaches, and those 2 coaches will be, once they are hired, they will be working at 2 of our schools to begin, at David Suzuki and Fletcher's Meadow are the 2 schools that we currently have listed. In terms of the dynamics of the program, the individuals will be in it. We have committed to work very closely with our community. We Rise Together, we have representatives from the We Rise Together Community Advisory Committee, as well as our PACE employee group, who will be sitting at the table quite rightly with us side by side to develop the program so that it's absolutely beneficial for our students. The design of the program is one where students who enter into high school in grade 9 would be supported by a graduation coach. This individual is not a teacher, but will be supporting not only connections to classrooms, but also connections to community support, so a liaison in the community, but also a liaison in working closely with administration to ensure that the students are getting the quality education, the resources from a culturally responsive pedagogy standpoint, and they'll be supported all the way through their high school experience until they graduate.
Okay.
And,
So
sorry, is there a way that we can follow up on
That is the end
that?
of question period. So we've expired our 15 minutes. Okay? So moving on to the next point of our agenda.
Come on up. The microphone is hot. Can I ask you a question?
Yes, point of order.
Last meeting,
Yep.
you said to be fair to the people asking questions, each person asked one question, return, and you allowed certain individuals to ask 4 or 5 questions, and you're cutting off other people. So if it was being fair to everyone, then you join a line, you ask one question, and the next people come up. So, and then you also gave some very, very, very long-winded answers to questions. So I don't think you're being quite fair to the public who have been sitting here, and we are a public board, and we are responsible to get the public being heard. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. I appreciate your comments. What I'll do is allow one more question. Okay. Would you like to ask your question, please?
Okay, great. My name's Anuradha Verma. I'm a community organizer with QT BIPOC Saga. I'm hoping you know what that acronym stands for. I'm a resident, I'm a content creator, and I am doing the job in the absence of video recording of live tweeting this entire meeting. That's me. You can follow along. My question is for the chair. As a former chair of a board, I understand the responsibilities of board governance. I'm also a policy governance nerd. And my question is about your familiarity and practice or praxis of inclusive governance. And the reason I'm asking that is because I've done content development around inclusive governance. I've worked with boards, and this really means understanding anti-racism, anti-oppression, equity, diversity, and inclusion. It means engaging in behaviors and practices of equity, which includes how you treat your fellow trustees, the staff persons, people in the public. Includes reflecting on your organization's values and beliefs, and for the Peel District School Board, that includes safety and well-being. And it means prioritizing taking proactive actions as a board to create and sustain an inclusive organization. As a board to board, I would love, or kind of board chair to board chair, I'd love to know, let's do it a facilitator style. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate your familiarity and practice of inclusive governance?
That's a good question.
So 1 is low, thank you. Yeah. Other facilitators in the room, this is helpful. 1 is quite low, maybe you've never heard of the term before, and 10 is
but thank
quite
you.
familiar.
We're a learning board. I'm the new chair as of December. Vice chair and myself have been in the board for 17 years.
Yes, that's a long time.
Right, so we feel that we've been very inclusive, but obviously the government disagrees with us. And we, the former chair asked for the government to come in because we had some issues, obviously, and they came to review. So I'm going to hold my comments until the review comes in and wait to see what kind of mandates, which I'm quite sure that they're going to include a lot of professional development around the trustee stuff. As trustee, when I first came in, the vice chair and I started a process of professional development around governance, because that's a concern. And around the next step is to do the complete stuff that you're talking about, absolutely.
Okay, and just for...
So that was the one question.
Yeah, just to clarify, you didn't actually answer my question. My question was about you as a chair, and I'll just clarify to say an important part of inclusive governance is being self-reflective as an individual, because unfortunately there is a hierarchy amongst board members. A chair always has more power, and as a queer person of color, when I was a chair, I tried to think about how to divert that. So again, if you could rate yourself on a scale... this is an opportunity for self-reflection. This is a great opportunity for you to show something else to the people in this audience who need to hear and see you as a different person, not the board as a whole. I'm too waiting for the report.
I won't answer that, but I know I have lots of room for improvement, and we as a board are working on it, and me as an individual will work on it.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we're now going to the further business. I'm going to not do the adoption of the in-committee report because we haven't completed that, right? So we have to go back into committee, and then we'll adopt it, and then finish the public meeting. So I am going to, I guess, adjourn this. I'm moving out of this meeting into committee, so this public meeting is now is recessed.
Yeah.
Sorry, what? Oh, sorry. So I need Trustees Davies, Trustee Marchand. All those in favor going to are in committee. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
I don't have the energy private today, so I'm giving this back to you.
Okay, that's fine. Is that mine? Oh, no, it's mine.
Okay, so I'll be upstairs when you need me.
Okay.
Okay, just text me when you need me.
Are we going to have a quorum? We're going to make it quick. We're going to make it quick.